Hi. Well, no, I'm just kidding. The mic's on now. Thank you. I got you the second time. What's up, everyone? I said, hi, I'm your disheveled host, robnoerr, blah, 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 blah. Running late, dog hair all over me. Apologies. Sorry. Life, man. Unlike those shithead left-wing streamers that don't have real jobs and do this for a career, this is my hobby. I have a wonderful family. And my sister-in-law and her boyfriend are over here today. And we were at my mother-in-law's place. And she made a ridiculous apple pie. It was amazing. Even in Biden's America, you could find a good apple pie. You just got to know where to look. So, yeah. Let me tell you, Nana makes a hell of an apple pie. Not my Nana, it's Hank's Nana. Hank's doing wonderfully. I'm finally off work. Had a crazy. The dog hair war, it's brutal. So I'll talk briefly about my day here, and then we'll hop right in. For those that watch me, you know my job is in home health care. State licensing comes through once a year or sometimes once every 2 years. They came through this week. They were supposed to come through tomorrow. They decided to come through today. So I was supposed to be off work at 2 p.m. I promptly got a call that they were coming in around 4 p.m., which meant that I had to go back to work. By the time that all finished up, we'd already made dinner plans, my wife and I, so we were late with those dinner plans, which resulted in me being late getting back here. But it was a lot. It's quite a stressful time, so it feels nice to be done. By the way, my house did very well with licensing. I don't think we had any marks against us, so that's always good to know. So I don't mind that, though. A lot of the funding through companies like I work with comes through the state. I don't mind the state checking to make sure their dollars are being spent prudently. And no matter how well you think you're doing in a healthcare atmosphere, it's always nice to have an outside set of eyes on you. Think about it. If your loved one's in a nursing home or a long-term care facility, you would like to know that someone's checking in. Now, I don't know that the government people are always the most competent. You want me to be dressed like Bastia? Tell you what, I need this damn beard trim. Look at this thing. It's getting out of control again. That's the plan. Tomorrow, big plan for me tomorrow. House cleaning stuff. Got a lot of house cleaning to do. I haven't been home for 4 days because of work. And then before that, we were in a hotel. And so got a lot of house cleaning to do here. In addition, I have 2 cars, my wife's car and my car. I think we're getting all new tires. We've been saving up to get some winter tread tires on because it's already started snowing here. So you got to do that. Got to be safe. Make sure you got some nice tread in your tires. So that's the plan tomorrow. House cleaning, getting some tires on the car. And then if I have time, maybe I'll go get trimmed up a little at the local barber shop. Pretty simple. I'm just number 2 all around. Did I fall asleep during Trump's announcement? We'll talk about Trump's announcement. So we talked about it last night, but I'll do a review. I'll say what I said last night and kind of expound upon it a little. And then I got some other things to. So we're going to take a break on my pointing the finger. That show will come back Friday. That's a show I'm doing blaming the midterm letdown. First person I blamed was me. Second person I blamed was some Trump supporters and QAnon people that trusted the plan or said 15 days to slow the spread, which led to the mail-in voting and things like that. I got a lot of other groups to get to, some bigger groups. But tonight, I thought we'd take a break in that show because there's some news of the week that I wanted to get to. Trump's speech last night, let's talk about it. I said I'd give it an 8 to an 8.5 out of 10. But that's because I'm evaluating that speech differently than I would most speeches. Because you have to ask, when you're looking at a speech, what is the reason behind the speech? So think of all the different types of speeches you could give. After dinner speech, like a ceremony or a eulogy. Tons of different types of speeches. You can give a speech at a company. You can give a speech, you're a salesman and you're trying to sell a product. There we go. What was the intent of Trump's speech? Well, obviously, he wants to announce that he's running to set the groundwork for running. But if you're going in, what are the things that you're telling Trump before he gives that speech, or the people that are writing it? I think the key points to get across were don't attack other Republicans, attack Biden, and talk about the important issues, which are the same issues that I've been talking about: the economy, the border, crime, treatment of our children, lockdowns, things like that. He also talked about somewhat election integrity, some other things of that nature. So I thought those topics were right. He was right to hit those topics. And I thought he was right to not come out swinging at DeSantis or anything like that. He's in a sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because the very people that are, not all, but a lot of the people that are criticizing Trump, rightfully kind of, for being low energy, would be the same type of people that would say, Trump's unhinged. We need a more presidential person. If he went out like, this guy sucks and enemy of the people and blah, blah, blah. They would say that's not presidential. So he kind of can't win. The sort of never Trump people are always going to be like whatever he does, either style of it. Now, I do think that it was a little low energy. The reason I ranked the speech so high as an 8 to an 8.5 is Trump being high energy is already baked into the cake. I don't know that there's anyone really out there that's like, well, I was going to vote for Trump, but he seemed low energy in that speech. Most Trump supporters are going to continue to be Trump supporters unless he gives them a big reason not to be. And that's not going to be he was low energy. However, the group that he needs to pick up are sort of moderate Republicans, independents. And you saw Lindsey Graham came out after and was like, this speech was presidential. Screw Lindsey Graham. But those are the types of people that Trump needs to impress. So I thought the speech sort of was good. I would give it a B, an 8.5. To me, that's a B. An A would be a 9, and rarely would you see a perfect speech. That's what I thought. Having said that, there were certain things in the speech that that wasn't fleshed out very well, that I wasn't the biggest fan of. Bragging that he had the fastest rising economy ever after COVID. No shit, that's because it bottomed out so fast. Bragging about how many endorsements he had that won. Sure, that's because he was endorsing a lot of people that had basically no competition. Like, I endorsed Glenn Thompson, my congressman here. Yeah, he basically was running unopposed. I guess I win, And the big problem with the speech for me was it was way too long, which I said last night. It was just way too long. This type of speech, it's not a State of the Union. This is a get excited, vote for me. Here's what my issues are going to be. Get in, get out. If you're going to do a big, long speech, then have a lot of specifics. Like, here's specifically what we're going to do about illegal immigration. Number 1, number 2, number 3. But it was a lot of sort of surface area commentary, which is fine. No one's expecting a speech like this to be a policy-driven speech. But once you start crossing the half hour and you get in, it was like an hour and 10 minutes. Too long. Can't hold people's attention span unless you're being very fiery. So when Nerdy Cop says, did you fall asleep? I can see how people would think that. It drug. The last half hour or so definitely drug. That's right. That's absolutely right, Nyla. It says when he goes entertainment mode, that's when the longer speeches work. Yep, totally agree. So, it was a good speech for what he wanted to accomplish. I'd give it about a B. However, definitely wasn't as energetic as people hope. And the other thing is, this was a written speech. We'll see if Trump can be disciplined and not attack people in the Republican Party. Nyralat is always right. I don't know why Nyralat, just type what you want me to say and I'll say it, and then I'll always be right too. So that's basically what I thought about Trump's speech. I think it was stellar. I didn't think it was terrible either. I thought it hit the right notes, what he needed to do. I don't know how much it turned the needle for anyone either direction, but it was too long. By the way, the only show worth a shit on mainstream media is Tucker Carlson. And it's always a shame when Trump gives speeches during Tucker's show. It's like, couldn't you speak during Hannity's show? No one watches that shit. Hey, Sean, have me on. I'm trying to get on bigger shows. So I thought one of the things I'd do is start to make an appeal. Sean Hannity, if any of your people are listening, listen, the midterms kind of didn't go the way we wanted. I was thinking of writing a strongly worded letter. You love that shit, right, Sean? You got Lindsey Graham all the time. He's always wagging his finger and going to write we're going to write a strongly worded letter this time. Me too, Sean. Bring me on. I'd love to talk about it. Trump or DeSantis? I don't know. There's pros and cons of both. My gut feeling says DeSantis. Let's talk. We'll go through this real quick. No problem. What are the pros of both? I think that ultimately the core issue I have is corruption, and the best chance to sort of actually basically throw a huge wrench in the FBI and places like that is Trump. I don't think I think DeSantis will be someone that's like, we'll do some investigations. We'll try to change a couple positions of leadership. I think that's probably as far as DeSantis will go, sadly. Trump actually now might be pissed enough after Mar-a-Lago was raided to actually do something with some teeth. But maybe not, because he didn't do anything the first time. So the pro for Trump, for me, is more likely to out corruption, but that's also the downside to him. He already had a chance and he didn't. So maybe you get fresh blood in there. As a statesman, no doubt DeSantis is better. DeSantis hits the right notes of attacking people like the media and things like that in the right way, but also not being unhinged. So in that sense, I think DeSantis is more of an ideologue and, more of a person that could articulate policy and things like that. The question becomes, before you build something, you need to demolish. Are we in the building stage or in the demolishing stage? I would say we're in the demolishing stage still. And Trump seems more of a demolition man than DeSantis to me. But still, I wouldn't mind either of them. To me, the big downside of DeSantis is, can he continue to be sort of a populist when in the next 2 years, the more establishment wing of the Republican Party is going to be whispering in his ear saying, oh, you're doing great. You're better than Trump. Trump's too unhinged. Come back to the center. That's where we need you to win. And not to blackpill you, but I would say the chances of either of them winning, unless Republicans start to play the ballot harvesting game, is slim to none. And I'll go even a step further. If DeSantis wins, or definitely DeSantis and 50% Trump, to me, I'll be skeptical that they'll do anything anyways, because I feel like if they win, that means that they got the establishment Republicans on board, which will basically hamstring them anyways. Do I think Trump will give the Democrats the win in 2024? I don't know. I don't know what that question means. Let's take it face value, because again, I'm on YouTube, that there was no cheating in this election in 2022. So let's just operate under that framework, because I'm on YouTube and I would never suggest otherwise. But given that, what are we told, for example, about Arizona? Well, 11 to 15% of Republicans voted against Kari Lake because she criticized John McCain. If Arizona voters are like, okay, we support open borders and mass inflation and all this stuff over making fun of John McCain, God willing, have at her. Enjoy your state. There is a lot of this, like it's, both sides are slightly childish, but I'm involved in this. I'm childish as well. As far as, I've told my story. My foray into politics, the first politician I really liked was Ron Paul. I supported Ron Paul in 2008 and 2012. I saw how he got screwed over by the Republican Party constantly. He was having huge crowds, huge enthusiasm, particularly for young people. The establishment Republican Party just crapped all over him. It seemed like there were shady things that were occurring in individual primary locations. But regardless, after Ron Paul lost, what I was told by the Republican Party is, well, hey, you had your chance. Your guy fought hard in the primary. He lost. Now it's time to come together and vote Republican. That was the Republican message. That's what we were told about McCain. That's what we were told about Romney. I didn't like McCain. I didn't like Romney. But that's what I was told. And I always suspected that if the shoe was on the other foot, and if someone that was an outsider like Ron Paul got in, that all of a sudden you would see the McCains and the Romney and the people that were in that faction of the Republican Party, they'd be bitter. They'd say, well, we're not supporting this. We'd rather have establishment Barack Obama than an outsider like, Ron Paul that wants to audit the Fed and stop this gravy train of these foreign regime change wars. We can't have that. We don't want that. We don't want actual fiscal responsibility. We'd rather have the Democrats than that. I always suspected that that's how it would be. But they always won the primary, and so we never got to find out. Well, okay, when Trump wins in 2016, then we saw their true colors. There were those that outright were never Trump, like the Lincoln Project and John McCain and Jeff Flake. And then there were those that were just going about sabotaging or allowing the sabotage of Trump's presidency. Your Mitch McConnells, your Lindsey Grahams, your Mitt Romneys, etc. Now they're even more vocal anti-Trumpers, many of them. Mitch McConnell and company didn't want a bunch of MAGA people to win seats, because if they did, that means less power for Mitch McConnell and company within the Republican Party. They would rather be the minority party and have leadership than be the majority party and not have leadership. So now there's a bunch of people that you could see sort of never Trump or they don't like Trump now that are on Twitter, blue checkmark class people, and they're saying things like this. Well, Trump won't win. If you nominate Trump, we won't vote for him. He can't get moderates and independents, so screw him. If you nominate him, we won't vote for him. But vote for our guy. Don't be babies, Trump supporters. Don't be babies. You have to vote for our guy. It's your fault if you don't. You see how that works? See, when Trump's there, or when Trump-connected people are there, they don't support them, they sabotage them, etc., etc. And then they say, look at those losers. They didn't accomplish much, or they didn't win. Now you got to support our guy. And when Trump people are like, no, we're not going to do that, they're like, well, then it's your fault. So, because of this, neither side at this point would be able to win a general election in 2024. Neither DeSantis or Trump at this stage would be able to win. If DeSantis was the nominee today and the election was like in a month from now, there would be a boatload of Trump people that would say, we're not going to vote for DeSantis. And if it was the other way, there would be a boatload of DeSantis people that would be like, we're not going to vote for Trump. And I got to be honest. I'll be honest with you. I would vote for DeSantis. I would. I've given my rationale. There are people that I would vote for that are sort of not as populist as I would like. I voted for Dr. Oz. But I'm not voting for Mitt Romney. Nope. Not happening. I'm not voting for Jeb Bush. Nope. And I'm not going to vote for people like that. So I guess you could lump me in that same criticism. Be like, okay, then Democrats win. Guess they win then. If it's a choice between Mitt Romney or Joe Biden, I'm voting Libertarian. Just telling you. Now, it won't be Mitt Romney, to be clear. But I'm just saying. So there is a certain caliber of Republican candidate that I'm just like, nah, I'm out. DeSantis isn't that. I would vote for DeSantis. So for me, what needs to happen in the next year or so is we need to leave Trump and DeSantis slug it out, and then whoever wins that, the other one's got to get on board and convince their people to support the other. And the truth is, as insane as this sounds, there's probably better luck of convincing Trump people to support DeSantis if DeSantis gives him the thumbs up than the other way around. There are so many never Trump Republicans that would rather Joe Biden have another term and open borders and abortions up until 9 months and mass inflation and being on the cusp of World War III. It's true. There are many, many Republicans that's fine, because you have to understand at the establishment level, there's not much different between the top Republicans and Democrats. Their primary interest is maintaining power for themselves. So any third party or anyone within their party that's seen as upsetting that apple cart, they don't like. They don't like Tulsi Gabbard. They didn't want Bernie Sanders in 2016. They don't like Donald Trump. They don't like Jill Stein. They don't like Andrew Yang. I'm not saying I like all of those people, but that's the truth. If Jill Stein somehow won the Democratic nominee, if you don't know, Jill Stein was the candidate for the Green Party, the corporatist Democrat class like Hillary Clinton would behind the scenes be pushing for Marco Rubio or Mitt Romney or Jeb Bush or whoever Jill Stein was running against. Guarantee it. And you'd be like, how's that make sense? Isn't she a leftist? Don't they like because she's seen as a potential outsider. That's why. Yeah, so Kane, DeSantis is in a tight spot. Let me speak hypothetically for a minute. Right? Let's say that you were a commentator, right? Let's say that you were a streamer and you had a radio show, but you also were talking to people within the Republican Party in your particular state. Hypothetically, let's say someone was out there like that. And hypothetically, let's say this person was like, I think that the leadership in this particular state sucks. That person might have to wonder, geez, if I just come out and say screw all these people, do I lose my opportunity to talk to those people? And if I'm a pragmatist, or I'm sorry, this hypothetical person is a pragmatist, right? And they want actual change to occur within the Republican Party, does that mean biting your tongue a little? It's a difficult question. Same question's true of DeSantis. At the end of the day, DeSantis is going to need a lot of the sort of establishment Republicans if he's going to have a chance. But how do you pick up Trump supporters if you're seen as being too friendly with the establishment Republicans? I think my gut feeling says Ron DeSantis is a great man. I think he's tremendous political talent. I don't know if he could stand up to 2 years of being told, come to our side. Come on, moderate. Oh, XXX. 20 fun. Find my hot girls here. Your girls? But thanks for the heart and winky face emoji. I hope you find your girls. If they're lost, that sounds terrible. Yeah, so far DeSantis has been okay. I agree. But that's what I thought about Trump's speech and Trump versus DeSantis. All right, news that I wanted to talk about today. 2 big stories that I thought were worth talking about. So you have to understand, I'm operating in sort of 3 different worlds. There are the world of when I'm in person going to Republican meetings here in Pennsylvania. And the way you hear people talk is different there, right? Because those are people that are serious people that are really involved in politics, maybe at the county level or at the state level. These are people with careers that are probably donating a lot of time and money to the Republican Party. So they're not going to be talking the same way as the second group, which is the online world that I'm in. Streamers, Twitter, people that you see on there. Those groups of people are focused on and talk about very different things. Even like-minded people, Republicans in the county chair seat are talking and focused on different things than Republicans in the streaming community. And then there's the biggest community of all, and that's the people that aren't involved in either of these. My friends, neighbors, family. Some are left-wing, most are right-wing. Their focuses and things like that often far less political, and when they are in the political sphere, very different focus and way they talk than sort of the people that are involved in politics in the real world and the people that are involved in sort of the online world. So those 3 worlds, I'm always entering different versions of those, right? And then sometimes it becomes far more left-wing. If I hang out with my old college friends, the old debate community, super left-wing, you know? So I get to see things from different perspectives. I really do. One of the things that I noticed is that the Ukraine stuff is really, really big in the online sphere. But it's not talked about as much in the political sphere, the real political sphere, like at the state level. I don't hear that a lot. When they're talking about inflation, they're talking about crime. And certainly outside of that, just when you're hanging out with friends and family, no one really talks about it. At least in my world. Your world might be different. But the online world has an awful lot to say about Ukraine. And one of the things I noticed from sort of the Politerati class on Twitter, especially coming from the left, was this insane rush here yesterday to get us into World War III. And the story went, Poland is a NATO ally, and if Poland is attacked, then that's a declaration of war, and we were treaty bound and obligated to go to war with whoever attacked Poland. Thank you, Come. Great name. I'm sure it's initials or something. 3 middle names. And so the Voshes of the world and all these other left-wingers on Twitch and, oh boy, here we go. Now it's an act of war. And Zelensky and the Ukrainians were out there. This is unforgivable. This is a war crime. And the Democrats are out there. War crime, war crime. Our ally was attacked. Now this had similar vibes to other stories, such as Assad gassing his own people. Now, if you remember, I forget exactly, it's been so long, there's so many stories rattling in my head, but the second time that Trump bombed Syria, which I was vehemently against, the accusation was that Assad had used chlorine gas to gas a particular area in Syria. The ICPW, it's sort of the international group that investigates chemical weapon attacks, biological weapon attacks, investigated. A whistleblower from in there said that the initial team that was there did not find proof that Assad did this. They were basically hushed. Who knows what to believe? Interesting that the whistleblower said that. You'll never know definitively. My take on it is, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 5,000 times. The USS Liberty, the Gulf of Tonkin, the Lithuania or the Lusitania, WMDs in Iraq. The list goes on and on. That we've been lied to for warmongers to profiteer in this country. So my feeling is we don't get involved until there's definitive proof that could be shown to the American people. It did not meet that threshold. But further than that, this isn't a foolproof method, but you can't help but to use sort of a lens, and I know people hate this term, but a lens of common sense. Now, common sense, I understand, is going to be different for everyone. But this is just like debates between what is a man and what is a woman. Well, you can't say that there's only two sexes because there's, you have male and female, and then there's all this variation in between. Right, but the variation is abnormalities between the two sexes. That's what it is. They're not each individual sexes. It's abnormalities in between those. It is true that some people could say, well, that's not common sense or this is common sense. But in general, we know what we're talking about. So let's go back and look at that Syria situation, right? Now, when Assad allegedly gassed his people, he'd all but won this conflict. There was a conflict that was ongoing with rebels, Free Syrian Army, and others. And it had been going on for years, and Assad had about wrapped it up. Now, at this point, the only chance that Assad would have basically to lose would be to do something so heinous that the international community would have to intervene. That's it. Imagine that you're in a football game, right? And there's 1 second on the clock, and you're up by 6 points, and all you have to do is kneel down. And the only chance you have to lose is if you, throw an interception that's ran back. And so you're like, I know what we'll do. We'll call a trick play. And it's like, why not just kneel? The game's over. No. We're going to do a trick play. We're going to, toss it backwards 3 times, then back to, have the quarterback be a receiver, and then, just pitch the ball over the field. Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. Why would Assad take this action? Yeah, isn't that weird, Sparky? Why wouldn't NATO why would Assad do this? That's the situation with this idea that Russia intentionally bombed Poland. As soon as I heard this story, I'm like, well, what sense does that make? Now, I'm not discrediting that possibly a Russian missile hit Poland when I first heard it, but more likely what happened was they were attempting to bomb Ukraine. And you could say that's horrible in its own right, but that's different than directly bombing a NATO ally. And maybe an accident occurred and the bomb made it into Polish territory. That's still not good. That still probably means that something needs to be done by NATO. Not declare war, but some sort of admonishment of Russia, more so than they've already done. It'd be toothless, but okay. But the idea that Russia was like, you know what? We're in this conflict with Ukraine right now, and whoever you believe, whether Russia is on the verge of losing or Russia's holding their ground, whatever, or anywhere in between there. Why in God's name would Russia at this point be like, you know what we'll do? We'll just bomb NATO countries. There we go. Now the entire world can openly be like, oh, okay, we'll declare war on Russia. Why would they do that? So the story made no sense. And then all the usual suspects, Zelensky and his crew out there, this was an intentional act by Russia. And all the left-wingers, oh, see, we told you about Russia. Now, in addition, remember, they're giving you this bullshit, their version, all of them, right, that are pro-Ukrainian and these super cheerleaders. I can't say all of them. A great portion of them. They're giving you two different versions simultaneous of what's going on in Ukraine. When you talk to them, they're like, that's it. Russia's done. It's embarrassing how bad Russia got their head. The Kherson's been taken over. It's it. Russia's egg on their face. It's all but over. Their military's deserting. It's over. That's it, you know. And you're like, oh, cool. Then we could turn off that money faucet. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, please, more money for the hat, please. No, Russia, if we don't fight them over there, we'll have to fight them over here. And Russia will just rush through Poland and they'll rush through Europe. And the next thing you know, they'll be on the shores of Pennsylvania. They'll be at the Statue of Liberty. Please, send the billions, please. Russia's going to take over any minute. And then you're like, oh, shit, well, we should have peace. Why have peace? Ukraine's dominating. Peace? What are you talking about? Russia's getting their ass kicked. Why negotiate? It's constantly the narrative that they have. They have to tell you this rosy story that Russia's getting their ass kicked, but it can't be that bad because then we won't send them billions of dollars, you know, that could get funneled through various crypto services back to the Democratic Party. That would be bad for them. Wouldn't be good. So we got to keep that cash faucet going. Infinite money. One of the things, and it's like that about everything, when you're like, wow, you know, is it wise to provoke Putin? What if he does decide to use nuclear weapons? What if he does decide to use conventional weapons to bomb European countries or the United States? Nah, he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that. The guy's not unhinged. You know, he wouldn't do that. He'd keep his wits about him. He's not going to do that. He'd know he'd get his ass kicked. And you're like, oh, well, if he's not unhinged, then why don't we try to sit down at the negotiating table? The guy's a maniac. You can't negotiate with the guy. He's a maniac. He's unhinged. It's the whole story. Now, you haven't heard me come on here and say, I'm an expert, because I'm not. And I'll fully tell you, I have no clue what's going on in the ground in Ukraine. None. At all. I just don't. I know both sides are going to bullshit me. My gut feeling is both sides are painting a rosier picture. I think it's undoubtable that Russia didn't do as well as many people predicted, but I also don't think that Ukraine has this wrapped up. I do believe, and this is just my gut feeling, stories that came out from anonymous sources that were saying it's sort of a stalemate. The Biden State Department has no clue how either side wins. That sounds about right to me. And I don't have no love for Putin or Russia. I don't. I didn't want them to invade. I think it's terrible. I'd been warning for years that an aggressive posture towards Russia might cause them to want to invade other countries and lash out because they feel like they're being encircled. I even criticized Trump, the guy I voted for, when he was bombing Russia's ally, Assad. I criticized that. Thanks for the follow, Wall Street. I'm not taking a side. If I had to choose, if I became like master of the world, you know, and it was some video game and I got to choose which side wins, I would choose that Russia goes home tomorrow and Ukraine keeps the gains that they have. That's how I would prefer it to go. I don't see that happening. But when I warned people, like, are you sure you want to be this aggressive? You sure you want this posturing towards Russia? They're like, Putin won't do anything. And now those are the same people telling you, we need to send billions. Putin's a maniac. He just bombed Poland. That's an act of war. Okay. What about the Donbas, though, right? Yeah. Why did they abandon Kherson? Maybe they didn't think it was strategic. Maybe they were losing and they're stretched thin. It doesn't matter. Taking over a place is different than holding a place. And meanwhile, while this is all going on, all the usual suspects, that by the way, the left used to tell us they're a bunch of warmonger profiteers, don't trust them, they're all for it. They're all for the never-ending spigot of money. And now we find out through this FTX thing that it seems that Ukraine was putting a lot of their money into FTX. And I got to be honest, I'm an idiot when it comes to this crypto. I don't know exactly what they were doing. I've seen people saying it looks really bad. It looks like they were laundering money through FTX. I've seen other people say, no, they had this tangential relationship with FTX, but it had nothing to do with investing. I don't know what the truth is. I know this, that FTX was a scam, and it was the second biggest donor to the Democratic Party. And I know, just like previously in the Ukraine, it is very possible that politicians in this country could be sending huge sums of money to Ukraine and then getting kickbacks for their interest in their family. You know, like Hunter Biden and John Kerry's son. We sent a bunch of money to energy industries in Ukraine. Those energy industries then hired family members of the people that were sending the money. They then sent them $100,000 checks a month. You know, shit like that. Meanwhile, people in Jackson don't have clean water. Veterans can't get benefits. The middle class is becoming invisible in this country. But it's all right, never-ending money to Zelensky, the true Powerball winner. And it seems to be benefiting the Democrats, all that money. But nonetheless. So with all that framework, all the worst people cheering this on, Russia bombs Poland. And I watched people on Twitter say, this is an act of war. What is it? Article 5? Oh, Article 5, we have to go to war now with Russia. That's it. It's cut and dry. And it's like, well, wait a minute. What if it wasn't an intentional attack? For example, let's take Ukraine, Russia out of it. Let's say that Pakistan, is targeting terrorists somewhere and, screws up and drops a bomb accidentally and it hits Germany. Do we go to war in Pakistan? Or do we say, well, it wasn't intentional? Excuse me. I know this. Sometimes I feel like there's an awful lot of people that can't wait to get us into World War III with a nuclear-armed superpower. That seems like a very bad idea. To me, I'd like to avoid that. That's how I feel. But not tough guys on Twitter. That, by the way, would be the last people. And I'm not claiming to be, look at my fat, out-of-shape ass. They're not sending me over. But I'm not telling other people that they have to die. That's right. These keyboard warriors, real tough. Yeah, bring it on. Bring on World War III. Yeah. You gotta love Dustin6204 here. Yeah, stay for the punchline, dumbass. But that's that. Those people said that's that. If Poland got attacked, that's a NATO ally, no question. Send in the troops. Invoke Article 5. That's it. Oh, what's that? Oh, it wasn't Russia, it was Ukraine. Whoops. Hey, not my standard. Vosh, you were saying article, right? Invoke the articles, war, right? War. Oh, no, you're still in favor of sending huge amounts of munitions and money to that country that just attacked a NATO ally. Well, it's different. It's different this time. It's different. It was an accident and, it wasn't an intentional and, Russia is still at fault. Fuck you. Now, they're right. We shouldn't go to war with Ukraine over this. It seems as if Ukraine probably was firing back at Russia aircraft and one of the bombs went into Poland. But I wasn't the warmonger that said it doesn't matter the circumstance. If a bomb hit, then the country that did it, Russia, is responsible and we have to invoke the articles to go to war. That's what they said. That was their standard. That was the left standard. Not everyone on the left, but many of them. Okay, and some on the right as well. Neocons on the right. Okay. Now we know it wasn't Russia. Just swap out Russia. And I talk about this all the time with the double standards. Like I'll say hypothetical. I'll be like, well, if Trump wins in 2024 and he used unverified opposition research to spy on his opponent, you would flip out. I say this to people and they're like, nah, I wouldn't. They're bullshitters, right? We don't even have to talk hypothetical. You could literally see in real time people that were like, go to war with Russia because they bombed Poland. And then it's like, oh, wait, it wasn't Russia. It was Ukraine. And they're like, well, it was an accident. Accidents happen. And, we should still keep sending billions to Ukraine. Not only that, that's not even the biggest part of the story. The biggest part of the story is that Zelensky and all of these other people in Ukraine, they jumped on it. They were like, see, they can't wait to get the United States involved in World War III. Can't wait. Oh, these terrible Zelensky's out there. They Russian attack, terrorism, worldwide terrorism, blah, 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 blah. Oh, sorry, Zelensky, it was your people. I refuse to believe that, he says. Geez, if they're willing to lie and propagandize about that, I wonder, would they be willing to lie and propagandize about the rest of the war? No, surely not. What's up, CTV? Doing good. I don't know how long I'll be streaming CTV. To be honest with you. Are you around Friday? I would love to talk to you Friday. The in-laws are here right now, so I don't know how long I'll be going. Jack Posobiec puts out a good tweet on this. If I get my window capture working. This is from Christopher Miller at Financial Times. Responding to Zelensky's remarks tonight, a NATO country diplomat told me, quote, "This is getting ridiculous. The Ukrainians are destroying our confidence in them. Nobody is blaming Ukraine, and they are openly lying. This is more destructive than the missile." What? Whoops! Where are they at? Where are the lefties? Time to bomb Ukraine, right? Not my standard. I don't want to bomb Ukraine. Not only do they not want to bomb Ukraine, now all of their rhetoric about, a NATO ally being attacked, we have no choice. We have to invoke, Article 3 or Article 5? Now all of a sudden it's not only, we don't have to invoke it, but it's, and we also have to keep sending billions of dollars. We have to do that. Would they announce right after the election, the midterms were decided? Another $38 billion? Nice. Yeah, it's a loan like the PPE loans, right? Except you don't ever have to pay them back. It's a loan like the $1 billion loan that Joe Biden offered to take away in the form of a quid pro quo if they didn't fire the prosecutor looking at his son. Most of these loans never get paid back. And even if they do, it's still a huge benefit. I'd love a zero-interest $1 billion loan myself. When do I get that? Hey, State Department, Joe Biden. Yeah, I think Ukraine is the tops. Can I please have $1 billion? No. I'll put it into my show. $1 billion I'll sell out for. You heard it here first. For $1 billion, my show will be all pro-Zelensky in Ukraine. From here on out. Go ahead, State Department. Send it to me. Go ahead, Russia. Go ahead, Biden. Fortunately, the shills sell out for far less than that. It'll be a loan that I'll pay back in 20 years or something. Good stuff. Now, if you're just tuning in, or if you've been listening to this and we've been talking about the specifics of, we were told that Russia bombed Poland and then that was an act of war and now all the NATO countries had to go to war with Russia. And then we found out, our bad, it wasn't Russia, it was Ukraine that bombed Poland. And the same people that said, well, if Poland got bombed, then NATO has to go to war are like, well, it was just an accident. And Zelensky's team fed the bullshit lie. You might think it would be a bigger story. Just hear me out here. Hear me out. It might be a bigger story that We just almost got lied into World War III. You might think that'd be a big story, but no. No, not under the Biden administration, not in today's world, where news is so shitty that, like, getting lied into World War II, it's like, that's a shame. That's like number 6. Mainstream media is like, we don't really have time to cover that much. You know? It's insane. Is that a bigger story than, say, I don't know, people that we were told were the premier people we had to listen to about COVID, lying about funding gain-of-function research in China where they probably created COVID? How do you rank those two? Lying us into World War III or creating a pandemic that was used as the excuse to make people's lives utterly miserable around the world? Or how about the other story I wanted to talk about tonight, January 6th? These stories, the corruption, the insanity, it comes so fast now. I mean, just a month ago, we found out through a left-wing publication, The Intercept, that the Department of Homeland Security was regularly meeting with social media companies to censor people that were critical of the Biden regime and critical of our establishment intel agencies. That's 15 years ago, that would have been the biggest story to ever drop. And now it's like, yeah, oh well. On to the next insane story. The January 6th story. Now, through filings in one of the hearings in the Proud Boy, it turns out that there were at least 8 FBI informants embedded in the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. Now, follow me on a journey, if you will. You might say, well, January 6th wasn't some premeditated insurrection that Donald Trump and Republican congresspeople were meeting and to inspire. It was just passions ran aflame. Possibly there were agitators there that wanted the passions to run inflame. But regardless, bad things happened. It was a bad situation. It wasn't an insurrection. People that engaged in violence should be punished. The people that didn't engage in violence are being maligned unfairly, being held without bail for years on end, denied their right to a speedy and fair trial, denied their right to evidence that could possibly exonerate them. And this is being used as an issue that's been one of the premier issues of the Democrats to smear all Republicans, but in particular people that like Donald Trump. That might be your take on it. But your take doesn't matter because you, like me, don't control the narrative. So the people that control the narrative, here's their take. Stop me if I'm wrong. Maybe you're one of them that believe that. Anyone, tell me if you think that I'm straw manning this. I'll try to steel man this position. A bunch of groups, calling themselves patriot groups, conspired to overthrow the legitimately elected government of this country because they were mad because their person lost. And so they conspired to engage in violence on January 6th, including storming the Capitol so that they could stop the counting of electors, thereby stopping the peaceful transition of power, engaging in an insurrection. In addition, it is likely that powerful people surrounding Trump had some level of attention paid to or designing or knowledge of this conspiracy to commit insurrection. Is that not the narrative? Is that not what the January 6th committee has been telling us? Isn't that what they say? Okay. So let's evaluate what we now know about January 6th through that lens. Shall we? We now know this is their official narrative, not mine. This is their official narrative. This was premeditated. It was an insurrection. These groups, such as the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, were involved in the premeditation and the planning of this. They may or may not have had contact with high-ranking Trump people or Republicans, but forget about that for now. We just know it was premeditated. The FBI had many informants there while it was being premeditated. There was almost no security there January 6th. And it was only because of noble capital city police officers that they stopped the insurrection. They're heroes. They had to kill Ashley Babbitt. That's what we know. Is there anything there that seems like, wait, what? Did you notice anything there in that timeline of events? Anything stand out to you? Because it's something that I had to explain to morons when we were talking about Ray Epps. Now, Ray Epps was a guy that was on camera both the day before and the day of January 6th. So January 5th and January 6th, telling people to break into the Capitol. He was right there whispering in the first guy's ear that was breaking down a barricade. January 5th, he was being so blatant in telling people to break into the Capitol that the crowd that knew that was a bad idea started screaming, "He's a Fed." Yet for some reason, the January 6th committee and Democrats that want to throw the book at every blue-haired grandma that set foot in the Capitol, they're like, leave this guy alone. Leave him alone. Poor guy's just trying to live his life. Leave him alone. Really? So if you went there and you just saw police holding doors open and you walked in the Capitol, you're a dirty, dirty insurrectionist that deserves everything you get. But if you're Ray Epps and you're inspiring people to do that, they're like, leave the poor man alone. So I and other people have been talking about this, and it's like, okay, that doesn't make sense. That makes no sense whatsoever. This isn't like this was some Democrat, there was some guy that was like down with Trump, but still stormed the Capitol. And so you'd be like, oh, that's why the Democrats are protecting him. No, this is a Trump hat wearing guy. There'd be no reason, if the story is as it looks in face value, for the Democrats to stick up for this guy. So why are they? And when you started to bring this up and you were like, maybe he was an FBI informant, maybe there were other FBI informants there. I had all sorts of people, you don't know if that's true, and so what if they're FBI informants and blah, 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 blah. And they can't piece together, right? And this is because so many of these lefties, it's funny, they call me a conspiracy theorist. They say I'm unhinged, an unhinged conspiracy theorist. They believe in these conspiracies so frequently, it doesn't even matter if they logically follow. Okay, I said this. I don't know how many people I debated and said this to. Think about what you're saying. So the FBI, if it turns out that the FBI, even if they didn't incite the insurrection, right? Because that's where they're going to fall to now. Well, they didn't incite it. Ray Epps wasn't an FBI informant. There's no proof he was. And even if the FBI was there, they weren't the ones inciting it. Let's assume that's true for a minute. Okay. You still don't see how that's a massive problem? Now, when we hear law enforcement, that one Capital City police officer that's crying all the time, said, "My God, blah, blah, blah." Like law enforcement, Christopher Wray, if you hear him talk about it, right? This was a huge, crazy event. Democrats and intel people at the FBI and such have told us this was the most serious attack on our Capitol since, 1812 or some shit. So given that, let's put yourselves in the shoes of an FBI agent that's embedded in the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. And a week before January 6th, you start hearing them say, we're going to the Capitol and we're going to kill people and we're going to, behead Mike Pence and we're going to stop the transition of power and we're going to install Donald Trump as permanent Führer of this country. Don't you think you'd be like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then you'd walk in the other room and be like, hello, Quantico? Yeah, get the Capital City Police and the Sergeant at Arms on the horn. It turns out they're coming to attack senators and congresspeople and Mike Pence, and they're going to try to kill them and steal and overthrow the country. Yeah, make sure that you get someone on the horn. Make sure you're prepared. There's going to be an insurrection. Thanks, Jordan Fargo. Really appreciate the sub. You don't think they would do that? Why not? You think they'd just be like, it's interesting. Anyways. I wonder why they didn't do that. That's interesting. Could someone explain? I guess it's just incompetence. Again, right? That's always the excuse. Why did they use unverified opposition research sourced by a Russian spy to spy on Trump's team and accuse them of colluding with Russians. They knew Hillary's team was colluding with Russians, who they suspected of being a spy. But instead of doing something about that, they paid that suspected Russian spy and spied on Trump's team. Why did they do that? Well, mistakes were made. Why did the FBI, that now we know was embedded in these insurrectionist organizations, why didn't they warn anyone at the Capitol? By the way, make sure you have a lot of police and a lot of security there, because these people are going to try to overthrow the government. Why didn't they do that? What good is the FBI if they know that domestic insurrectionists are about to overthrow the government and they don't act? They're just like, oh, well, what good are they? Well, it could be that they're incredibly incompetent, to which my response is, good, then disband them. Everyone here, every single person watching, left or right, would say, geez, if I was in surveying someone that I knew was about to overthrow the government and I was a federal agent, I would at least pick up my phone and tell my superiors they're trying to overthrow the government on this particular day. Here's the plan. I would at least do that. Every one of us know that. Unless the accusation is they were so embedded and being surveyed the whole time they didn't have access to a phone, which is bullshit. So it's not incompetence, even though, as always, that's what the defenders of our intelligence agencies and establishment, that's what they'll have to default to. No. Rob, you don't understand. The people that are running the most powerful intel agency in the history of the world are the dumbest motherfuckers that have ever lived. So everything's okay. That's the official Democrat line. They're just really stupid. They didn't know you weren't allowed to change evidence to say the opposite of the truth in order to spy on someone. Didn't know. They just didn't know. Whoops. So that's not what happened. What's the other possibilities? Well, it could be that the FBI was embedded and there was no planned insurrection. Could be. Could be that the second in command of the Proud Boys that was reporting to the FBI, could be that there's nothing going on. We're going to go and we're going to have a rally. And then shit got out of hand. That could be what happened. Well, that's not good for the Democrats, because they've spent years telling us that it was incited by Donald Trump and it was this big plan and it was an insurrection. It's no good if it's just a run-of-the-mill, people got pissed off. Some people clashed with police. That's no good. Hell, the Democrats do that on a weekly basis. So that doesn't help their narrative. It could be that the FBI was encouraging people to get violent. It could be that people, maybe not Ray Epps, but likely Ray Epps, were working with the government and wanted the violence. And it could be that the sergeant-at-arms under Nancy Pelosi and the Capital City Police leadership and Muriel Bowser, the mayor, it could be that they got exactly what they wanted. That they didn't want a lot of police force. That they wanted a spectacle. That they wanted their Reichstag fire. So they could say, see, now we're justified in treating Trump and Trump supporters like domestic terrorists. And now we could censor people that had questions about the election. And now we could install authoritarianism. That's what it could be. Can anyone else think of another possibility? How are you going to blame the feds and not the people actually doing the break-in? Is that what I did? Is that what I did there? Is that what happened? Have you watched me? Do you know what I talk about? Have you watched the video I did in real time on January 6th? When people were telling me, it's Antifa. I said, maybe. Maybe it's being inspired by the FBI or Antifa. The people engaged in violence still should be punished. They still have fault. But if our FBI was intentionally trying to start a riot at the Capitol, intentionally making sure that there wasn't enough law enforcement there to stop it, and then partaking in exploiting that in order to usher in authoritarianism, again, I say this a lot, but quite possibly the biggest political scandal in the history of this country. And the idea that it's like, well, even if that's true, what about Jim Bob Smith here? He punched that cop in the face. You're excusing him? No, I'm not. Not at all. Jim Bob should face some punishment there. That's right, it is all my fault. Why would the FBI do that? Why do you think? I've talked about this at great length. First off, does the FBI prefer Donald Trump, or does the FBI prefer the Democrats that were going against him? Well, let's rewind to before Trump was sworn in, when Chuck Schumer said the FBI would find 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at Trump for criticizing them. Does it seem like the leadership of the FBI, Rosenstein, that offered to wear a wire to try to get Trump taken out with the 25th Amendment or whatever, or James Comey, or Peter Strzok, or McCabe, or Lisa Page, those people, or Kevin Kleinsmith, those people seem like they like Trump? Or were they looking for an insurance policy? What's up, Hurricane Buzzy Bob? Thanks so much. Thanks for being here. By the way, thank you to everyone who gives me positive words. It means a lot. Sometimes I don't see all the comments, but it does. It means a lot. And sometimes I see them and I don't comment, and I should. So thank you for that. Right, that's what I'm talking about, Ian. If the FBI was embedded and this was a pre-planned thing, there is zero excuses for why the FBI did not make sure that there was adequate protection. Hell, I'll go further than that. I don't even care if the FBI is embedded. If you know, does anyone know? I don't have the numbers in front of me. Does anyone know how many people showed up to the Capitol on January 6th? I'm not saying they engaged in violence, just total number of people. 100,000? More? I don't give a shit if it's a concert. Right? It could be John Mayer could be playing in the Capitol lawn, and there's going to be 100,000 people there. 500,000, okay? There's going to be hundreds of thousands of people there. And Congress is right there. The leaders of our country are right. There needs to be a buffer. And that's not even an insurrection. That's just like people could get out of hand. Anything could happen. There could be shitty people within that crowd. Yeah, we got to make sure there's adequate security. It's inexcusable. The only person we know wanted increased security there was Donald Trump. And yeah, he kind of wanted it there because he assumed that left-wing agitators would come and start shit. But that's okay. For whatever reason, he wanted more security there. And presumably that security was going to stop violent rioters regardless of what side they were on. So it was always a question. I said this from the get-go. January 6th committee? Sure. There's some questions I have. Why wasn't there more security? Let's see the communications between the Sergeant-at-Arms and Nancy Pelosi and Mario Bowser. Let's see those communications. Let's see the communications between the FBI leading up to January 6th and what they were telling people at the Capitol. Yeah, I'm very interested in that. But the January 6th committee, they just didn't seem to care about that. Didn't care about that. Also, the pipe bomb. I'm very interested in that. What do we know about it? Well, we know it seems very unlikely that the story is as we are told. Someone happened to set these 2 pipe bombs that happened to be found at the exact time that Kamala Harris was going to be there. That was set with a timer that meant that the timer was only set for like an hour, so that bomb had to sit there in a park bench where people walk back and forth where no one happened to see it. We were lied to about where Kamala Harris initially was. There's video surveillance of that person, but they haven't released still shots. Every other person, they've released still shots as much as possible. And they don't seem to talk about the pipe bomber much. It's very strange. I don't give a shit if it was a Trump person, if it was an FBI person, if it was a Democrat person. That's insane. I don't give a shit who did it in the sense of if it's someone that completely agrees and votes the same way as me, that person needs to be locked up probably forever. You can't do that. You cannot place pipe bombs, even in people I despise, Democrat leaders that I despise. You can't threaten their lives. Absolutely outrageous. That I'm interested in. Guy in Chewbacca horns saying, man, yeah, we'll respect everything. Not so interested in that. Yeah, he should get punished for trespassing. That's about it. Instead, he's looking at months. But they're not very interested in the pipe bomb, not very interested in why there weren't more security there and looking at the communications behind that, not very interested in were there FBI informants. For some reason, the January 6th committee wasn't very interested, not very interested in why people that were publicly calling for attacking the Capitol like Ray Epps are allowed to walk free. Not very interested in that. It's weird. It's almost like it's just political theater, and they're not really interested in getting to the bottom of what happened January 6th. It's almost what it seems like. Nah, that can't be the case. If that was the case, then they would have probably hired some TV network goon to help produce the show and then put it back to prime time and think, oh, that's exactly what they did. My bad. We were told it was crazy conspiracy theory shit to say that the FBI was embedded. Why wouldn't they be embedded? They constantly tell us that the biggest threat to this country's right-wing populist terrorist. There was talk of naming the Proud Boys a terrorist organization at certain times. Why wouldn't they be embedded? You'd have to be a moron. I tell people that all the time. I go to Republican events, and sometimes I give my number out, my actual cell phone number, right? Because it might be like, hey, we're going to have a dinner. We'd like you to come. We'd, maybe speak, maybe just come, hobnob around, whatever. Or maybe it'd be, would you be interested in knocking on doors, handing out campaign signs, etc. So you go to these events, and yeah, sure. You sign your name, your email, your phone number sometimes. So I'm on a text chain with like 30 people. And this text chain started around the movie 2000 Mules. 30 people, I don't see their names. It's not people whose numbers I have in my phone. Maybe one or two of them I know, but I wouldn't know just by seeing their number. So I have no idea who the people chatting on this are. I would say there's an 80% chance one of them's a Fed informant. Now, that might be wrong, but that's how I'm going to operate. And you're an idiot. If you're on a Telegram or you're on a text chain or you're some online group and you hear someone talking about like, oh, maybe it's time to refresh the tree of liberty with the blood of tyrants. There's a Fed there. Just so you know. If you're going to the Oath Keepers rally or the Proud Boys, there's a Fed there. Just so you know. So it was insane to me that right out of the gate when you were like, okay, why wasn't there adequate security there? If this was a planned insurrection, why wasn't the Fed involved in these groups that they suspected of being extremist? Why are we paying the FBI? What's going on? How did they drop the ball so much? Surely there were informants. And when you said that, they were like, that's crazy conspiracy theory shit. You can't say that. You should be censored. What are you talking about? It just logically makes sense. I'm not saying that's proof. Maybe there were no people there. Now we know through court filings there were, which made sense and was the most likely scenario all along. Okay, well then that leads to a problem. If this was a pre-planned insurrection and the feds were embedded and were aware of it, why wasn't there adequate security? What happened? They don't have an answer for that. So now they ain't gonna be talking about it. Even the left-wing streamers, they're not talking about it tonight. The left-wing streamers tonight, let's see, maybe if you're lucky, they're still talking about Trump's speech. But by the end of the week, they'll be talking about who did Destiny have sex with this week. That's what they're talking about. Drama bullshit. Why not? Why aren't they looking at this? We were told that this is like a stunning event. My God, our government was almost overthrown. Serious accusation. If I was someone that really believed that, I would be floored. Why wasn't the FBI there? But yet they were like, no, we're not going to talk about that. That's a crazy conspiracy. You're a conspiracy theorist, Rob. Now court filings show that they were there. Now what? Now what's your excuse? They don't give a shit. Deep down, and let me be clear about this. Most of them know they're full of shit. Some don't, some are dumb, but most of them know they're full of shit. Or they're afraid that they are. They don't want to silence you because they think you're spreading disinformation. They want to silence you because they think you might be right. And that destroys their whole narrative. That's why they're not talking about this. It's just like we were told for 4 years the biggest story was Russia collusion. Trump-Russia collusion. Trump-Russia collusion. And now we know there was Russia collusion. And it was Hillary's team colluding with the suspected Russian spy that the FBI then paid as a confidential human source to take bullshit that they were peddling that we now know was untrue in the form of the information in the dossier and using it to spy on Trump's team. That happened. It's beyond dispute. I've debated at great lengths by people that try to defend it. They have nothing to say. There's no defense. All of a sudden, it's like, it's in the past. What can you do? I never believed Trump-Russia collusion was a big deal anyways. And that's the same way this January 6th shit will go down. As I predicted, when all of the truth finally comes out, they'll be like, well, of course it went down that way. And, that's the way, yeah, all right, the FBI was inciting people, but those people that did it are still to blame. And, it's a long time ago anyways. We're focused on the 2024 election now. And there'll be a new, did you hear Trump's tax returns again? Oh my God, this is the biggest story in the world, Trump's tax returns. Ted Cruz went to Cancun again? No. What is he doing? How many margaritas did he drink there? We need to get to the bottom of this shit. Right, it didn't happen, and then once you find out it did, it was like, well, it's a good thing it did. Now moving on. They just hate Republicans due to social issues. That's true of many left-wingers. But they're willing to listen to establishment figures unquestioningly as long as they're peddling a narrative that helps them. So for whatever reason, if you hate Trump, if you hate him because you think he's a loathsome person, or if you hate him because of his stance on social issues, or if you hate him because whatever reason, then you're willing to blindly accept people that are like, Orange Man bad, we had to spy on him, he's an insurrectionist, etc., etc. You just blindly accept it. And either you're dumb and you believe that, or you know that it's probably not true, but you don't care because it's politically advantageous to you. And when it blows up in your face, you're like, oh, well, moving on. It accomplished what we need. Good enough. They don't care. They don't care at all. How's my son still? If it's 10:30, I hear him down there. He should be in bed. Hangster. And Lindsay, who's a resident lefty here, he's not wrong. See what he says there. It's an admission that he should be ashamed as a Democrat to admit. He says, Republicans will babble about facts 24/7 and never win. Right, facts don't matter. That's right. That is a quintessential Democrat for you right there. Doesn't matter what the facts are. Republicans could talk about. And by the way, it's not just Republicans. Adam Kissinger and Liz Cheney are Republicans. Lindsey Graham's a Republican. Mitt Romney's a Republican. Mitch McConnell's a Republican. John McCain was. Jeff Flake was. They're involved in this too. But the idea of, well, the facts don't matter. Oh, Republicans will complain. Well, wait a minute. None of this makes sense, this insurrection narrative. It doesn't make sense for X, Y, and Z. Lindsey doesn't give a shit about the facts of it. Notice he or anyone else on here won't be able to dispute anything I'm saying. They can't. They never can. And so it's just, who gives a shit? We won the election. That's all that matters. That's how they look at it. Anything's justified to keep the people they don't like out of power. This January 6th narrative is so important because this is the quintessential moment that was used to justify to treat Trump and his supporters like domestic terrorists. It's what's used to justify censorship of channels on places like YouTube. It's what's justified to censor any conversation around mail-in ballots and election security. It's what's used to justify trying to keep Trump from running again. It's what's used to justify to attack people that were considered MAGA candidates in 2022. It's what's used to justify the creation of their Ministry of Truth. It's what's used to justify the story that the Department of Homeland Security was reaching out to all of these social media platforms, censoring disinformation. Now, this stuff, some of it was occurring before January 6th, but certainly January 6th was the catalyst to say, see, all of it was justified because it inspires domestic terrorism. And it's blowing up in their fucking face. And no one cares. No one on the left cares. Oh, well, whatever. And again, they're just waiting. This is what they always do. None of them will come on and talk about, just like the raid of Mar-a-Lago, all of this stuff. They wait until the talking points come out from the administration, and then they just repeat them. And that's it. That's good enough for us. I said it with the Trump-Russia collusion stuff. I've showed the writing I had on this October 23rd, 2017, when I wrote up a big screed on Above Top Secret where I said, if the dossier was used to get FISA warrants to spy on Trump and his team, it is the biggest political scandal in the history of the country. And when I was like, it looks like this was used to get a FISA warrant, and it was unverified, and it was sourced by Russians, and it was paid by Hillary's team and the DNC. And the response I got over and over was, bullshit, conspiracy theory, conspiracy. You can't prove any of this. And the reason they said that, the tacit admission to that is, why would they say that? Why would they say that? What are they really saying when they say that? They don't have proof. It's not like they had evidence that was like, well, here's my evidence right here that says, no, the FBI did not use this for a FISA warrant. They're just like, I know, it's so outlandish that the FBI would use unverified opposition research sourced by a Russian to claim that the opponent of that research was working with Russians. There's no way the FBI would take, because that's insane. That would be so ridiculous and so corrupt that there's no way the FBI would do it. That's why they're saying this is a conspiracy. It would never happen. Never. That's why, for example, when you said like, Andrew Cuomo's lying about the number of people that died in nursing homes. That's why when I said that in the panel, Destiny's like, what do you think he's throwing the bodies in the ocean? That's his admission that like, he's not doing that, because if he did that, that would be really heinous. And then I was like, oh no, he did it. It's admitted. And then immediately, what did it change to? Well, maybe he had good reason to do it. Same with now the people that were saying, no way the FBI did that. Then they're like, well, of course the FBI did that. Of course they did, but it's okay. It was a good thing that they did. Same here. You're a conspiracy theorist for saying that the FBI would have been embedded in these groups. How dare you suggest FBI informants could have been amongst these groups? That's ridiculous bullshit conspiracy. And now that we find out that's true, they'll be like, well, of course they were there. It's a great thing. And if we find out, for example, that Ray Epps was an FBI informant or an FBI agent, or that other people that were breaking in or suggested breaking in, like they did with the Whitmer case, if we find out that FBI informants or agents were behind that, they'll say, great, that's a good thing. That's what they'll say. The same people that are telling you that would never happen, that would be insane, it couldn't happen. You're a conspiracy theorist. If it's definitively proven, they'll immediately switch to go, well, yeah, I'm glad it happened. It was a good thing. Absolutely. That's what they'll be saying. So there's another narrative, January 6th. And if we find out in the Ukraine situation, if we find out with it that, yeah, a bunch of money was being kicked back to politicians in the United States, particularly the Democratic Party, and yeah, it turns out that, they could have gone to the negotiating table much sooner, and yeah, it turns out a lot of the weapons we sent there disappeared, and so 20 years from now we have to go in because terrorists have those weapons now. They won't give a shit. They'll say, oh, it's a good thing. That's good. It doesn't matter anymore, just like they're doing with COVID. Same thing. You're crazy. You're a crazy conspiracy theorist. You think this could have came from a lab in Wuhan? Now it's like, yeah, it probably did, but what are you going to do? You're crazy. You think lockdowns would be more harmful? That's dangerous. You're responsible for people dying. Let's let bygones be bygones. Oh, well, people make mistakes. Sorry we ruined your life. It's never ending. But Lindsay's right. It works. It does. It works. I talk to people that are centrists, left-wingers. Good friends with them. They buy this shit every time. Same people shoveling shit burgers in their mouth. They eat it with a smile on their face. And then afterwards, when you're like, that was shit, you just ate a shit burger, they're like, oh my God, shit burger? Well, it was probably good for me anyways. But, I don't think I'll eat any more shit burgers. But that one was probably good for me. And then the chef comes back, so like, sir, here's another burger. And they're like, oh boy, yeah. And you're like, don't eat that, it's shit. It's not shit. It wouldn't be a shit burger. Come on now, that's ridiculous. You're crazy. You think this guy would serve me shit? But he just did. You just ate a shit burger that guy served. No. And they take a big old bite, shit coming down their jaws. Good, it's good. You're like, that's shit. No, it's not shit. And they finish up, licking their fingers. That is a tasty burger. What a good burger. And the chef comes out and is like, yeah, it was shit. And they're like, oh, well, it was probably good for me again. But, I won't, that's it. That's the last time. And the chef's like, don't worry, got more burgers coming up for you. And they're tucking their bib in. Can't wait. Bring them out. That's it. Well, I was really concerned about crime here in New York, but I just couldn't bring myself to vote for the extremist insurrectionist Republicans. You did it. Enjoy your crime. When's the last time I ate something good for me? Good question. It's kind of a dumb question because, I like carrots and broccoli and Brussels sprouts. That's good for me. But when's the last time I went a full day only eating shit that was good for me? Probably like 2 months. Yeah, we're sorry. Now, there's some guy. I want to tell you about some guy here. You guys are going to like this guy. And I know it's one of you. Oh, it's not some guy, it's some dude. There's someone on Discord whose name's some dude. I know it's one of you. I forget which one it is. Who's always giving me great advice for my channel, sending me things. Now, you'll remember that I was trying to get on Sitch and Adam's show, and Adam was actually in my chat one day and was like, yeah, we'll have you on the show. I haven't heard back from them. But this some dude, as his name is on Discord. By the way, if you're some dude, just give me a shout. Not some dude as in a random dude, but the person who goes by the moniker of some dude on Discord. I forget who it is. He generously sent me this clip from Sitch and Adam's show, which I think kind of fits into what we're talking about here. About, I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist. That's what you're told. Now, do I sometimes believe in things that are conspiracies? Absolutely. So does everyone. What's the definition of conspiracy? People coming together clandestinely to do something advantageous for their side? Get in touch with Caffeine Tweaker on Twitter. Okay, I'll try to do that. Thanks, Hung Hawaiilo, for saying my son's going to grow up if I don't set a good example with what he eats. Thank you so much. Take your suggestions. I appreciate it. When it's involving my son, whatever. Like, maybe a little smug, but thanks so much. I don't know if Adam and Sitch are liberal shills, whatever. Nonetheless, let's show you this clip. Oops. Well, I screwed the pooch. 1 second. What's going on here with my... Oh, boy. I got to change my audio. Oh, come on. So here's a clip from like 9 days ago on Sitch and Adam's show. Or not. Come on.
It was founded on 29th August 1997 by Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph. Netflix is that old? I didn't know that. Since 2013, Netflix has produced its own films and series, including animated ones as well as television shows. Well, I didn't know this. I never heard of this product before. We will also provide you with a personal account with a full subscription to promote our service. If you are interested, you can reply to this email and we will discuss the job price and all details of cooperation. I look forward to hearing from you as soon as possible. Yours sincerely, Netflix team. I kind of feel like I should reply to this.
No,
and
you
like
shouldn't.
lead them on. I'm curious as to how the scam works. Like, what are they going to ask from me?
Do we have any robnoerr fans in the audience? Somebody keeps messaging us saying, "Stay clear of robnoerr. He's an unhinged lunatic."
Yeah, so you're right. Someone keeps doing that.
So I'm messaging him back. What's wrong with unhinged people? Come on, jeez. They need an outlet too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we love it. Unhinged people on the show. Okay, we should get robnoerr on sooner. I didn't realize he was unhinged. Rob. He seems rather normal to me, though. That's why I was kind of dragging my feet on getting him on.
So I got another email from someone that wants me to shill NordVPN, but at least they have like a website and like a.
So I'm glad there's a fan out there messaging people not to have me on shows because I'm an unhinged lunatic. Really? Well, that's why no one wants to debate me on these issues. The best they could muster is someone like Pisco. Oh, I actually don't dislike Pisco as a person. Go back and watch the video I did with Pisco on Russia collusion here on my 24-hour stream. It's up on YouTube. I'll post the link here. Go watch it. See how well he did. He's basically just like, yeah, I don't have a problem that the FBI didn't bother to verify this. I just don't have a problem with it. I think that it's okay. That's it. He doesn't deny what I'm saying. He's just saying, well, that's it. That's the best they could offer. Here's the debate with me and Pisco. Go ahead, check it out. Takes a while to get into the Russia collusion because first I have to shame him on his defense of the statement that the people of Martha's Vineyard just didn't have enough money to take care of 50 migrants or illegals for more than 2 days. Just didn't have enough money. Border towns, people making less than $30,000 a year, they should be able to indefinitely hold tens of thousands of illegal immigrants. But one of the wealthiest communities in the country, they just don't have the resources to deal with 50 people for more than 2 days. That's it. That's the best they could muster. Everyone else, they don't want to talk to me about Russia collusion. Every single time. One time I was on a panel with Demon Mama and some other people, and we were going to talk about Russia collusion. And they changed the topic 10 minutes before the show because they thought it was old and uninteresting. You see? No one wants to talk about it because they know they're wrong. They don't give a shit. Oh, well, it had its utility at the time. Now when I bring it up to people, almost to a T, ask regular viewers of mine, I would say 70 to 80% of the people when I bring this up say, I never bought into the Russia collusion shit. Thanks so much for the follow, Croatia. I never bought into it. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I didn't buy into that. Mark my words, 6 months from now, a year from now, they'll be saying the same. I never said the January 6th stuff was a big deal. That's what they'll be saying. Once all this information comes like, well, the FBI knew and they did nothing, and it probably is likely that the FBI inspired it, they'll be like, look, it's a long time ago. I thought it was stupid. Democrats should have been focusing on it. That's what they'll say. Now, when a show's like, sure, we'll have Rob on, and that show asked me what I wanted to talk about, and I said corruption at the FBI, but I'll talk about anything. Now people are like, oh, I'm emailing them, Rob's an unhinged lunatic. Don't talk to him. Right. That's the sort of thing. They have to keep me off of these platforms because they can't handle talking the facts of them. They can't. They know what's about to happen. That's why Vosh won't debate me. That's why Destiny. Remember the last time I debated Destiny? I said, hey, remember you were going to debate me on the Hunter Biden Burisma thing? He's like, yeah, we'll do that debate. I've reached out to him probably a dozen times. Ready for that debate? Moderators have reached out to him. Ready for that debate? I wonder why not. Well, sure. Most people that aren't Democrats that are trying to exploit January 6th as an excuse to censor people and treat people as domestic terrorists understand it wasn't that big of a deal. But that's not the policy of the Democratic Party. That's still, now they're subpoenaing Trump, and Trump didn't respond. It's never ending. The final pitch for the Democrats going into the election was basically Republicans are anti-democratic. They're crazy insurrectionists. That was their final pitch. So don't act like there's not large swaths of people still discussing this and buying into it. I guess to someone who supports Joe Biden, a guy whose daughter wrote in her diary being uncomfortable that her dad showered with her when she was older, who sniffs little girls' hair, who can't get a coherent sentence out, a group of people that think that the mutilation and indoctrination of children is a great thing, a group of people that want abortions up until 9 months. Yeah, I guess to them I would seem unhinged, and I'll wear that shit like a badge of honor. Yeah, a bunch of rabid, shithead, censorious lefties think that I'm unhinged because I'm capable of debating them and showing them how terrible their ideas are. So much so that our resident lefty Alincy here says, well, you got the facts, but facts don't matter. We're winning elections. Right. That's right. They don't want to talk to me because they know what will happen. The 9 months thing is not a straw man. Wall Street, tell me in one sentence, what is the Democratic policy prescription for abortion? Go ahead, Wall Street. Tell me what their policy's prescription is. Did I watch Matt Walsh on Joe Rogan? I saw snippets, but not the whole thing. Go ahead. I'm saying the abortion up to 9 months. You're saying that's a straw man. So tell me what the Democratic position is. Obviously, different Democrats could have different positions. What is the mainstream position? If you heard one phrase about abortion, the most from Democrats, what would it be? That's not what they say, EOD. What do they say? They don't say that Roe v. Wade, right. They say Roe v. Wade should be upheld because it's the woman's choice. It should be a decision between the woman and her medical professional. That's it. There should be no laws. There's no rule for the government restricting a woman's access to abortion. It's a woman's choice. So what does that mean? It's a straw man, right? That's what you said. It's a straw man. Does everyone agree that's the Democrat position? Government should not be involved. It's a woman's right to choose. Okay. What does that mean? What abortion law look like then? Well, no law. That's what it looks like. The law is no law. As long as a doctor and a woman say this is what we've chosen, then it should be allowed to fly. Hence, even 9-month abortions. But they're rare. They don't happen much. So that's like saying rape, murder's pretty rare, so no need to make it illegal. Right, that is the official policy. The official policy is to allow almost a 1-year abortion. Absolutely, that's the official policy. If they're saying we think that it's immoral for the government to have a say in it, there should be no laws, then yes, another way of saying that is the official policy is to allow abortions up until the day of birth. Yep, that is exactly what the official policy is. One of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard, which is also counterintuitive to the other Democrat argument, which is, why are men allowed to have a vote in the matter? Well, men are allowed to have a vote in the matter because we should be allowed to vote on whether or not we are allowed to kill people. I shouldn't have a say, for example, in whether or not breast enlargement surgery should be allowed. If you're a woman and you're an adult and you want to have a breast enlargement surgery, absolutely you should be allowed to do so. When another life is involved, then yes, the general public, including men, has a voice in what that policy should be. Pretty simple. No matter how much Democrats want to try to get around the issue, at the end of the day, the issue is at some point we say, and you could, listen, reasonable people could disagree, and there could be scientific disagreement on this. When is that a human life? Once we declare that it's a human life, it is immoral to allow for the extermination of it. It is no longer just woman's body, woman's choice at that point. So the question is, when is that point? And the Democrats' position is, we don't think that the government should ever be allowed to say, i.e., we don't care if it's a human life. That's the government's position, or that's the Democrats' position. There should be no law. It is a woman's choice every time. And they've been asked specifically about this over and over. Peter Doocy asked John Pierre this, the White House press corps header, over and over. So what's the policy? What's the policy? Do you think there should be any regulation? Schumer said that there should be no regulation. Pelosi said there should be. This is not some fringe idea. It's not a straw man. It is the actual position of the Democratic Party. And by the way, the Republicans were terrible at not pointing out that this is their position. Right, as soon as we term the life point. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So then the question is, when is that? But it's not it's not a catchy phrase for Democrats to say, it's between a woman and her doctor. Well, until 20 weeks, at which point we think it's a human life, and then the woman can't do it unless there's special circumstances. That's not really a good slogan, is it? And that piss off a lot of progressives. So they have no choice just to be like, well, there should be no law. Next topic. We just want to say they're bad. My guess is the average person thinks that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare in early trimesters. And then at some point, they would be like, okay, once there's viability, for example, or something like that, most people would probably say, look, we have to look at options other than abortion. We think at that point abortion's too much. Unless there's just, the woman's life's in danger, things like that. My guess is that most people don't think that, no abortions. I think a lot of people say, no, that's wrong. But if I had to guess, I would think if you had to choose between no abortions or abortions up until 9 months, the average person would be like, oh my God, this is such a bad choice. I guess I'll go with the no abortion because aborting a 9-month-old baby, that's fucking grotesque. It's grotesque. But that's the position of the Democratic Party. And the media lets them get away with it. And the Republicans let them get away with it. That's their policy. So we had the government trying, Zelensky tried to lie us into World War III. No big deal. Turns out FBI informants were embedded with the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. But wait a minute. Why didn't they have adequate protection on January 6th if this was a planned insurrection? Shut up, plebe. Don't worry about that. We'll censor you again. Yeah, I don't disagree, Tainted Only. Damn, this washing machine. Is what? The view I've articulated on abortion based on religious views? Religion would have a part in it. The average person has some sort of religious view. But it's not the end-all be-all. They can't can't defend it. They know they can't. They can't defend why even one woman should be allowed to be like, you know what, 8.5 months, I think I should have an abortion. They can't defend it. They know they can't. So they're just like, no, I don't believe that. Oh, so you do believe at some point the government has the right to tell a woman it's not just about your right to choice. At some point the government does say, actually, you don't get to make that choice because it's a human life. But that, again, they can't, that goes against their bullshit slogan. And then Pisco had the same argument. He was like, well, it's just, no one really believes that. Bullshit, that's what they say. That's their fucking argument. Because they can't paint Republicans as handmaiden tale, blah, blah, blah. If the Republican argument's like, well, federally we're saying 15 weeks should be allowed, then after that with exceptions. And the Democrats' position's like, we disagree. We think it should be 23 weeks. It's hard to paint your opponents as handmaiden tale maniacs then, right? Because it's like, well, you just disagree on the threshold. It's a matter of 6-7 weeks. That's where the disagreement is. They can't do that. They have to say, no, we're moral. We believe that women are entitled to protect their bodies, and the Republicans don't believe that. That's their argument. Okay, well, what's the outcome of that? If they want to have an abortion at 9 months, they're allowed. They don't have an answer to it. It's bullshit. That's all they say. No one says... Okay, so then everyone's admitting that all of you that are saying this is bullshit, you are saying that the government does have the right to tell a woman she can't do what she wants with her body. That's what you're admitting, correct? Just want to be clear. The people that are saying you're wrong, this is bullshit, you're saying that's not true. Democrats do believe that the government has a right to tell a woman what she could do with her body. That's what you're saying. Just want to be clear. That's the official Democrat policy. If what I'm saying is bullshit. No, that's not what they wanted, just to uphold Roe v. Wade. They've said repeatedly what their position is, that these decisions should be from a woman and her doctor. Roe v. Wade was bad case law, even if you're an abortion advocate. It should never have been up to the courts. It is clear that the Fourth Amendment and the right to privacy did not entail abortion, which abortions were medical procedures that were available at the time. The reason that it doesn't entail abortion is because there is questions. Your right to do what you want with your body and privacy, etc., stops when it grotesquely affects another person. So in the name of privacy, I don't get the right to kill someone who accidentally saw my phone. Every one of us would agree that's insane, but I could say, but that's my privacy. I don't want that person seeing my phone. You would say, yeah, but you don't get to kill a person for that. That's crazy. Same is true of abortion. Yes, in general, I agree that decisions between adults, medical decisions should be between them and their doctor. As long as the doctor is ethical in talking about what the ramifications are. That's why I don't mind adults that are trans taking the hormones that they want, the medications they want, the surgeries. It's fine. As long as the doctor is ethically, trying to do the best possible thing and talking about side effects, no problem. Leave adults make that decision. They do not get to make the decision to murder another human being. Don't get to make that decision. The case law was terrible. It should have always been up to the states, or there should have been a federal law passed. The idea that overturning Roe v. Wade meant that abortion it was somehow anti-democratic is bullshit. That's because Democrats were successful at convincing people that overturning Roe v. Wade meant abortions would no longer be legal. That is not what it meant. It meant that the protections that the Fourth Amendment guaranteed your right to an abortion no longer existed. And so now it was up to each individual state, which is the way it should be. By the way, it's the way marijuana law should be. The 10th Amendment is quite specific. If it is not expressly said in the Constitution, it should be up to the states. Agreed. At least I'm against the death sentence. How is that true? I always find this argument. Killing an innocent baby should be allowed, but killing a guilty criminal shouldn't be. I love that argument. No, there are times when you forfeit your protections outlined in the Bill of Rights. For example, the First Amendment says we have the right to free assembly. If you are convicted of rape and imprisoned, you no longer have the right to freely assemble in the public square. You have forfeited that right by engaging in criminal behavior that we think is disgusting enough that it means that you're a danger now or you need to be punished and have that First Amendment right stripped away. Your right to self-defense and to keep and bear arms. You lose that right when you go to prison because we understand that you forfeit those rights because you have deemed yourself a danger. So there are times when we say that even the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness through your own actions could be revoked. Having said that, I probably am against the death penalty. but it's always funny to watch that argument. Well, if you're against murdering innocent babies, then you must be against murdering Ted Bundy. What? Yeah, it's crazy, Dusk, yeah. Again, there is a reasonable... I'm not a diehard. I'm not like, oh, contraception should be banned and the morning after pill should be banned. I think that there should be allowed to be early trimester abortions to some degree. I don't know where. Brain activity, heartbeat, something like that. 7 weeks, 11 weeks, I don't know. That's sort of where I come in at it. A lot of right-wingers hate me for that. But the idea that somehow... that I'm wrong when I'm saying that the Democrat position is there should be no law, that it should be between a woman and her doctor is absolute bullshit, and none of you can defend it. No one can. That's what they say. And this is something that they do with language quite frequently, right? They'll say things, and then when you're like, okay, well, this is what that means, as soon as it's no longer advantageous to, like, for example, men can have babies too. Okay. Then the next argument is, why do men have a say in abortion? Well, for first off, they can have babies too. Well, that's just stupid. Right, I know that's stupid. But that's what you say. The truth is, when you say that, you know you're full of shit. But we have to pretend that you're making a serious argument. And so when we say, okay, here's the extrapolation of what your argument means, you're like, no one really means that. Right, which is why we should dispense with that argument. You're right. No one really believes, well, there are radicals that believe it, but the Democrat leadership doesn't really believe no laws about abortion whatsoever. They don't believe that. But they don't want to say, yeah, we too believe that we have the right to regulate a woman's body. We just think it's at 25 weeks and not 15 weeks. They don't want to say that. And then when I bring it up, you people that are Democrats make excuses for them. Well, everybody knows what it means. Bullshit. All right, that's about the end of my time for the evening. I'm on the side of the court is always right. What are you talking about? Maybe you're not talking to me. I don't understand how you could extrapolate what I'm saying there as me being on the side that the court's always right. I thought the court was wrong when they issued Roe v. Wade. I thought the court was wrong in 92 when they upheld Roe v. Wade in the Casey decision. I think they were right in the Dobbs decision. Fuck, I'm dense. Tell you what, why don't you call in Friday and you can prove how dense I am. You pick the topic. How's that one side? I love that argument too. I wonder if Kyle Vin, the CV, I wonder if he goes on left-wing shows and goes, you're so one-sided. And this is a common tactic that left-wingers do. They control 95% of the narrative. They control the entertainment industry almost completely. They control the majority of the mainstream media. They control most of the tech companies and the companies that control free speech. And still they're like, I'm going to come on to this right-winger show and be like, how come you're only giving me one side of the issue? Well, I don't. Sometimes I give both sides of the issue, but I admit I'm partisan and I'm biased. But the reason I'm doing it is because fuck you. That's why, because I want to. Because I realize that the both sides do it argument is bullshit, and it's used to cop out and make excuses when one side's clearly worse. It is clear at this point that the Democrats are clearly worse, and it is clear on the on the issues I talked about today, including this abortion issue that was brought up, that the Democrats are absolutely wrong. And I am correctly articulating the position of the Democrats, which none of you were able to refute. And I'm correctly articulating what their position was on January 6th and the embedment of the FBI. And I'm correct on what that means if the FBI was there. And I'm also correct on what they said about Russia bombing Poland. And then that turned out to be Ukraine. And they showed that they have a double standard. And I'm correct on the Russiagate thing too. And you have nothing to say about it. None of you do. That's why you say things like, he's unhinged, you're partisan, this is stupid. That's another way of saying, I don't have anything to rebut this. Nothing. So I'm going to beg and ask, well, can't you do the both sides do it thing? No. I can do it. I choose not to. That's what's going on. Or as Lindsay said it, just because you have facts doesn't mean you win. Correct. I show no rationality to rhetoric or discourse. Well, you want to call in? I'll make time for you right now. I'll give a half hour to you. A special stick around for another half hour. I'll even put a timer up so you get equal time as me. You could pick the topic. I speak faster with intense vocal inflection. I do. Probably a result of me being a policy debater, and I don't give a shit. Why don't you call in? It's clear I'm dense. It's clear I'm not rational. You'll have no problem easily. I'm offering you, I'll put a timer on the screen. You get equal time as me. 15 minutes apiece. We'll do it in 2-minute chunks. What say you? All you need is a cell phone. I'll give you my Google Voice number. I'm about to wrap up the show unless you want to call in. So you don't need equal time. Great, you don't need it. You're so good you won't need equal time. So you can spend the rest of the time just gloating about how you're crushing me because I'm so dense. Okay, ready to call in? Can I answer without getting angry? Sure. Ready to call in? What do you mean you're not good? You don't have to be good. It's clear I'm dense and I'm not rational. So it doesn't matter if you're a good speaker. You'll shame me. Please don't string it along. I'll have more respect for you if you just say, no, I'm not calling in, so I can wrap up the show and get out of here. Instead of doing like people always do and string it along for 5-10 minutes like they might call in and then say, nah, I can't. Yeah, I'm the only person in the world that has access to a computer but not a phone. So I'm going to give you a minute to say whether or not you're calling in. You could say, no, I'm not going to ban you or anything. No, you're not calling in. We knew you wouldn't. Washed up, I take calls almost anytime someone offers. I would say 90% of the time someone says you're stupid, you're wrong, or it doesn't have to be that. I disagree. I'm like, you want to call in and talk about it? Almost always offer it. I would say 5 to 10% of the time people take the offer. Almost always it goes very poorly for them. Not always, but almost always. Does anyone remember a person named Ruminate? Ruminate was someone on Twitter that was saying, Rob, you're so dumb, when I was talking about the efficacy of natural immunity versus that of vaccines. And I was talking about that on Twitter, and I had a big long thread on it on Twitter and was going back and forth and talking about why vaccine mandates were terrible. And this person said, you're stupid, you're wrong. And I said, why don't you call into the show? We'll set up a special show with you. I'll make sure you have equal time. You'll be able to say your piece. Does anyone remember this? You can still find that debate on Odyssey. I believe that debate's on Twitter. You can still find it. Does anybody remember how that ended? That ended with him saying, I'm not equipped for this conversation. I just don't know what to say. And then he went on Destiny's show twice and said, I talked to robnoerr and I got crushed. That's how it ended. Justin Freakin wanted to call in. That guy, Ellen DeGenerate, wanted to call in. How'd it work for them? Not very good. Sometimes people call in and it's not contentious. It's just a disagreement. In those conversations, I'm very affable. I would be affable to this gentleman if he wants to call in. But nothing I said, it's just nonsense. There's no articulate argument as to why I'm wrong. It's just, well, you're partisan. I'm admitting I'm partisan. You're just discussing one side. Yep, you're basically right. I'm just discussing one side. Yep, not disagreeing with any of that. Yep. Do I quite frequently criticize Republicans? Yep. Did you watch my last 2 shows? Right? Which I'm doing a whole series of criticizing Republicans. And the first show was criticizing my failures going into the midterms. Then it was Trump supporters and QAnon people going into the midterms. And then tomorrow I got an interview. And then Friday it'll probably be criticizing the establishment GOP, the leadership of the GOP. And then Monday it'll probably be criticizing Donald Trump. I've done entire shows where I talked about how horrible the candidates like Dr. Oz were. I criticized Dr. Oz vehemently for his communications director mocking John Fetterman for a stroke. I thought it was horrible. I criticized Trump all the time when he was doing things like lockdowns, when he was bombing Syria, when he was signing massive spending bills. I criticized Republicans all the time when they were endorsing lockdowns. I don't just do one side. I debate right-wingers that are more right-wing to me on issues like gay marriage, on issues like white nationalism and things like that. And not only do I debate them, I think I'm better at defending those positions than people on the left. And yet someone comes in and they see 20 minutes of me discussing an issue about how terrible the Democrats are, and their only criticism is, but why don't you give me the other side? If you want the other side, you can go to CNN or NPR or the Washington Post or the New York Times or MSNBC or ABC or CBS, or to almost all the blue checkmarks on Twitter, or to most of the posts on Facebook, or to almost all the political discourse on YouTube, or to any college in the country, or to any award ceremony or place where entertainment. You can get the other side there. That's all they have. So go ahead, go over there and get the other side. Meanwhile, what is the other side of this particular issue, the abortion side? We're talking about what the Democrats' position is. I was quite articulate in what their logical conclusion, what their position is, and you don't have an answer. Keyline Platypus will tell you he actually absolutely believes that a woman should be allowed to have an abortion up to 9 months. I find it to be a grotesque position, but at least he's honest about it. But it is the only logical position if you say woman's body, woman's choice. As even he, as a lefty, will admit, that is the only logical position. When I bring that to the attention... Oh, Kefka, thank you so much on D Live. The one person on D Live that's saying like I sound like a fat baby seal. Like the animal, or I don't know if Seal was singing Kiss from a Rose as a baby, but thank you so much. That's exactly right, Wolf's Rain. They expect the other side. Like their idea is when left-wing venues are talking 100% left-wing, when right-wing are talking, well, it should be 50-50. There is no pretenses that that's what you get here. When I find it up to me to criticize the right or Republicans or Trump or DeSantis or whoever, myself, then I will. I do not feel obligated by audience people. I'm filling the Alex Jones void big time. I wish. Other than the paying billions of dollars shit. I have 80 people watching. Alex Jones could do a live stream right now and have 10,000 people. So I don't think I'm filling that void quite. He may have looked like a burn victim, but wasn't he married to Heidi Klum, one of the most attractive women in the world? So I think that song's. I like Seal. I honestly, I don't know shit about him as a person or his politics, but as far as his music, I enjoyed it. That Batman movie was terrible that the Kiss from a Rose song was from, but man, it's a good song, man. And apparently I look like a fat baby bird. Do I have a burn? Do I have a scar? Is that what it is? If anyone knows Seal, ask him if he'll come on the show. I'd love to have an interview with him about whether or not I look like a fat baby version of him. I think it would be great. There's a movie. There is a movie. Yeah. Turning the frogs gay. All right. The caller's not calling in. Well, not the caller. Let's raid someone. Get out of here, huh? One of the things that I think that I like, if I wasn't me, one of the things I would like about me and about my channel is I hope that I never change. I'm willing to talk to people that have no audience. I love talking to people that disagree with me. Maybe it should change some, but I can't help it. That's in my nature. That's what I like. I talk about topics. I don't know any other streamer that did this. I had a debate show that my friend Aftershock moderated. The show used to be every Wednesday. We would find a person for me to debate. The topic would be two topics. One, of my opponent's choosing and one of Aftershock's choosing. I never even chose one topic for the debate. Most of the time that I debate, almost 95% of the time, it is debating the topic that my opponent wants to debate. When I debate Econoboy, it's on economics. When I debate Dylan Byrne, it's on foreign policy. Those are the areas that they claim to have expertise. That's what I'm debating on. I don't claim to be an expert in anything. Recently, someone reached out to me and said that there's a person named Avi, and they saw me debate puberty blockers for children. Thanks so much for the follow. I really appreciate it, Washed Up. And wanted to know if I would debate this Avi person, who is a licensed medical doctor in the field of transgender treatment. I said, no, I don't want to debate it. Why not? I said, because anytime you talk about trans issues on Twitch, I get doxxed, I get my email or my account hacked, I get my Discord banned, I get strikes on YouTube, etc., because I don't have any problem with trans people, trans adults. I think that ultimately it's an ailment, a disease, an illness, something of that nature, but I wouldn't treat someone terribly just because they're bipolar. Hell, my job is working with people with developmental disabilities, so I don't treat anyone like crap. I myself probably am part autistic and bipolar. Not diagnosed, but I probably am. I have loved ones that suffered from everything from schizophrenia to bipolar. So I'm not judging, and I'm not the type of person that judges, people that happen to be gay and things like that. Go ahead, find it. It's something that a lot of my audience complains. But despite that, the cancel culture people that are on Twitch, that are in the trans community, I don't think they're representative of the entire trans community, but they decide to try to cancel you if you talk about these issues. So I debated those issues quite frequently. I gave my opinion on them. I thought I did quite well. That's it. I get tired of getting doxxed and banned and all that shit. And they were like, come on, this guy wouldn't do that. I was like, fuck it, let's do it. Okay, fine. I'll debate a doctor who specializes in trans medicine on the trans puberty blockers for children. So I reached out to said doctor and I said, would you like to debate on the topic of puberty blockers? And that doctor for children, and that doctor said, I don't think there's enough evidence to have that debate. Right, which is basically my position. There's not good evidence that these treatments for children are a good thing. In fact, it's worse than that. It's monstrous. So he didn't want to have the debate. He was like, you want to have the debate on treatment for adults? No, I don't give a shit. It wouldn't be a debate because I'd be like, yeah, adults should be allowed to do what they want. And he'll be like, well, these hormones actually help adults. Maybe. It's irrelevant to me. As long as they're happy, they're getting free choice. Look, I believe in freedom. I believe we should have the freedom to make bad choices. Maybe puberty blockers or not puberty blockers, but maybe transition surgery is very helpful for the majority of adults that get it. I don't know or care. As long as the doctors are being upfront about the risks, more power to them. There might be people that are like, it's a big mistake, don't do it. That's fine. Leave them have that debate. I just don't give a shit. It's the same reason you won't see me like, what's better, cardio or lifting? Don't give a shit. It's not an interest to me. Is Lecture Fan in here? Yeah, right. That's right. Lecture Fan says I've been saying no for 7 years. Right. It's uninteresting. It's a red herring. Again, look, even today, we ended up talking about abortion. Let's go back to the two topics. We almost got lied into World War III by Zelensky, which rabid Democrats were like, yay, World War III, let's go. And then when it was like, okay, now keep that energy going. It wasn't Russia. It was Ukraine. You want to bomb them now? Oh, that's different. And we found out that what we've been called conspiracy theories about for the past 2 years, that actually there were FBI informants that were embedded and get amongst these groups like the Proud Boys, etc., going into January 6th. And yet somehow there wasn't adequate protection there, thereby dismantling their entire narrative about January 6th. And what's the left have to say? Did one person that was in here on the left, did one person muster any sort of defense whatsoever? Nope. This is the sort of things they said. They said, we had someone that said about Sitch and Adam previously, Rob's unhinged. Why don't you give both sides? You're not rational. You're dense. The facts are on your side, but that doesn't win elections. By the way, that last one's true. But no one talked about the specific issues I was talking about. They couldn't. And then we had a switch to abortion, which I also Proved how wrong they were on that issue. No defense, nothing. They have none. Change the topic. What about trans stuff? What about Ted Cruz going to Cancun? We talked about shit sandwiches a little too. And the left's propensity. You know, did you ever get a sloppy Joe and you put way too much meat on it and then instantly you regret it? You take a bite and it's coming out the other end. You're like, ah. That's a big helping of shit. That's what the lefty's like. You're like, don't do it. That's a shit sandwich you're about to eat. You're wrong. They'd never give me a shit sandwich. Delicious. And then the chef comes out and is like, that was shit. I just gave you a shit sandwich. You're licking your fingers. And they're like, oh, well, it was probably good for me. Anyways, I'll never take another shit sandwich. And the chef's like, okay, I got another sandwich for you here. And they're like, pile it on. Yeah. And you're like, don't do that. He just gave you a shit sandwich. That's another shit sandwich. Huh? No, you're wrong. Conspiracy theory. Shit sandwich. Has anyone got a bib? And the chef's like, yeah, that was a shit sandwich. And they're like, well, it was probably a good thing that I ate that. That's it. That's the left in a nutshell. We talked about that. Maybe we could have a debate on that topic. Some lefty come on and be like, I've never actually eaten a shit sandwich. I'd put it at 50-50 whether they would do it. I'm thoroughly convinced. I've said this from the get-go. More fecal humor. I am convinced if Dr. Fauci would have came out and said, listen, using toilet paper is spreading COVID. When you wipe with toilet paper, actually it's spreading, aerial bacteria. And it's spreading COVID. So instead, don't use toilet paper. Just use your bare hand and don't wash it. That's the way. That helps give you immunity. You would have seen lefty after lefty walking around with shit-covered hands. How you doing? Guaranteed. Guarantee it. What, you're anti-science? You washed your hand? You're using toilet paper? Don't you trust the science? That's what they would have done. I'm not even joking. They would have done it. I absolutely guarantee it. They're wearing fucking masks in cars by themselves. They're wearing masks in the ocean or in the pool while they're swimming. I'm getting too hungry. That might be true. I'll finish it now. I'm ending my soda. The leftist liberal shit. Whatever. I sort of agree. The traditional values of liberalism, like free speech and, liberalism has a lot to do with sort of libertarianism. I don't agree with everything, but I do think that it's amazing to me because I see people that, and it's difficult because people define these words differently. And, I don't get into the semantics shit. But yeah, I still see left-wing liberals like Jimmy Dore or Aaron Mattei. Those to me are people that are like, we believe in the values of free speech. Maybe Eric Weinstein. They're on the left, but they're liberals. And to me, that's different. That doesn't mean I'm saying, I agree with their policy. I don't. I'm not liberal. But I do agree with those principles of free speech and things of that nature. And Jimmy Dore is great. I totally agree. Would probably disagree with 90% of Jimmy Dore's politics. But is he a person that stuck to his guns? And I respect that. Yeah, that's right. They still vote Democrat. Again, this is the last thing I'll say, and then I do have to get going. I mentioned this the other day. I talked to a friend of mine. This is a moderate Democrat, and this Democrat, it reminded me of something that was, I messaged Eric Weinstein about on Twitter that I heard. I wasn't the first to say this, but a lot of these moderate Democrats, right, you'll hear people say, well, if you just did this, right, if you just were more liberal on gay marriage, then you would get these moderate Democrats. Now, make no mistake about it. I'm for the legalization of gay marriage. A lot of conservative, more right-wing people will hate that about me, but that's my position. I think that the government shouldn't have a say in marriage, and if they do, they should not be allowed to discriminate amongst consenting adults based on sexuality. It's my feeling. We could disagree, whatever. It's not an issue that I'm particularly keen to debate because it's a red herring. But the idea that if all of a sudden, the Republican Party would be like, yeah, we agree with robnoerr, that Eric Weinstein would be like, okay, now I'll vote Republican. He won't. He'll just say, okay, now here's the next issue. And what these moderate Democrats are really saying is, if the Republicans would just become Democrats, I'd vote for them. Sorry. That's so dumb. I heard that Jimmy Dore went on Sitch and Adam. Well, I'm an unhinged lunatic, so maybe Sitch and Adam will have me on. We can talk a little about Russiagate, and we'll see if they can filibuster me. We'll see how well it works. Yeah, I saw that. Alec Berenson said if Trump's... Right, Alex Berenson, if you don't know, is one of the premier people that was on Twitter talking about vaccines being dangerous, vaccine mandates being bad, was right on a lot of stuff surrounding that and COVID. And then he was censored. He filed a lawsuit. He won against Twitter. It's since been released that the government specifically was asking Twitter to censor his post through emails that we saw from Twitter employees. So this is someone who should know about authoritarian lefties. You should know about it. And yet he's like, I'll vote for Democrats if Trump's the nominee. Okay, enjoy your censorship. I don't know what else to say. And that's what I was telling my friend. My friend voted for John Fetterman. You know, I don't want to hear him say, here's the quirks I have with this candidate versus this candidate. You literally voted for a walking stroke meme. That's it. So it's a sobering moment. I'm not saying I hate my friend. I wish him well. I hope Fetterman does great for the state of Pennsylvania. He won't, but I could hope, right? And I hope my friend's life succeeds and he's amazing, gets married, has kids, has a great life. I hope he does. I'll still be his friend. But I don't want to hear him complain anymore. Oh, it's in Philadelphia and, the violence. You voted for it. And it's not like he voted for it and didn't know. He'll complain about the demo. Oh, their policies on policing are terrible and the violence, blah, blah, blah. He knows that. It's not like he's saying, I disagree. He's like, yeah, I agree. But he's willing to accept that. Why? Well, Dr. Oz was from New Jersey. That's why. I didn't like Oz's TV show. Any specific policies he didn't really like? A little here, a little there. So you took the stroke meme. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to hear you complain. I hope it doesn't happen to you, but when it does, I don't want to hear it. And I'm no longer interested in being like, oh, I look at you as sort of the moderate version of a Democrat and people that we could reach to. We're not going to reach that guy. If that guy in this world right now, with what's going on with Democrat control, with the economy the way it is, with crime, with the border, with the indoctrination of children, with the lockdowns, most of that stuff I know that my friend hates. Not all of it, but most of it. If things are this bad right now, and the candidate put forth is a walking stroke meme, and he's still like, I could find a reason to vote for that. There will never be a situation where that person in a prominent election, statewide election, votes Republican. It won't happen. I could be in charge of the Pennsylvania GOP and call that person and say, who should we pick? Give me the exact policies that you would think would be necessary to vote Republican. What's the one issue? And he could say, the one issue is this. Gay marriage, right? Say that, not big. We're going to pick the most pro-gay marriage Republican ever. In fact, he's going to go further than the lefties. He'll be like, we'll give in financial incentives for gay marriage. And at the end of the day, my friend would be like, well, I still went Democrat, but I appreciate the effort. You're not going to reach those people. I just told you why he voted Democrat. He didn't like Oz's TV show, and Oz was from Jersey. That's why. If John Fetterman was from Ohio and Oz was from Pennsylvania, he would have found another reason to be like, but it's what it is. It's always that way. It's how someone like Alex Berenson could say, I'll vote for Democrats. I just spent 2 years telling you about how Democrats are the most authoritarian, abusive people. They personally censored me. I fought a legal battle to prove how disgusting they were. I find them to be responsible for untold amounts of deaths, for their vaccine mandates, their lockdowns, and things like that. And yet still, I would vote for them again if Donald Trump was the nominee. Why? Well, he's not a good guy. He's mean. I don't like the tweets. Okay. It's true. And Lindsay's right? And Lindsay's like, well, the facts don't matter. That's true. The ballot harvesting matters. That's first and foremost. But beyond that, emotional appeal. That's what it is. The same people that were lied to. Like, think of all the stories of Trump does some shit. I give the case morally against Trump. I find marriage to be very important. The idea of cheating on your wife is despicable to me. There is no doubt Trump cheated on his wife. That's terrible. Trump's done loathsome things. Trump's a braggart. He's petty. It's true. He has said harsh things at times that I felt were undeserving. He said a lot of harsh things that were deserving about the media in place. But nonetheless, these are all true. Maybe in an election where it's like 50-50, I like half these policies and half these policies, maybe that factors in. But if you're willing to say, well, I think the other party is leading to inflation and energy costs going through the roof and open borders and a crime wave and lockdowns and indoctrination of our children. But you know what I really hate? It's mean tweets. Okay. That's fair. Have at her. I'm not going to try to convince you. I'm not saying that I wish ill on you. I'm not saying that at all. I'll still go out there and try to make the case why you should vote for the people that I think you should vote for. And if you don't want to listen, that's fine. That's why you don't hear me screaming at the sky, on election night. You didn't hear it. I did a whole show on why I needed to look at myself and how I was to blame and how I was wrong about my predictions. I wasn't shirking responsibility. Not at all. But I didn't freak out. No, I don't get tired of being right about Ukraine. I'm right all the time. I liked the prosperity under Trump before he started to listen to the COVID shills. I liked that we weren't engaged in any increased foreign wars. I liked that. I liked that he was calling out corrupt people. I like that he was at least giving a voice to people that were poor and working class that traditionally don't have a voice. I like that. I like that our enemies thought he was unhinged, and so they walked the line. I like that. I like the 2019 country that Donald Trump was leading. Liked it a lot more than this country. I did. Could I have nitpicked about some of the tweets he had and shit? Of course. Could I have said, but he shouldn't have cheated on his wife? Of course. But you could do the same with me. You'd be like, I don't like the time that Rob did this. He brought this up with Dylan Burns. I thought that was out of bounds. I don't like when he brought this up with Hunter Avalon. I don't like when, I thought he was unhinged when he was on this panel with Vosh. There is, trust me, I can come up with a list of criticisms about myself, and I do it quite frequently. But obviously, there are things. I am petty. I do fly off the handle sometimes. Yep. Yesterday, Aftershock was trying to give me advice. I was kind of chippy with him. Sucks. Does that mean I was wrong about Russiagate? Does that mean I was wrong about Ukraine? Does that mean I was wrong about COVID? If that's how you want to go through life and say, well, and by the way, the opposite's true. Maybe you'd be like, there are lefties that are like, well, I think Rob's likable. Okay, if I'm likable, but I'm wrong about a lot of shit. Was it Weinstein or was it Jordan Peterson, sir? And I remember Jordan Peterson called for Kavanaugh to step down. I didn't know Brett Weinstein did. Yeah, it was Jordan Peterson's worst moment, calling for Kavanaugh to step down. I like Aftershock, though. He's one of my favorite people on here. There might be better candidates than Trump. Let's see. Name one. Name 5 candidates that are better than Trump. DeSantis, I'm willing to listen to. Give me some more. Just get an idea where you're coming from, Jarrell. Rand Paul would be a better candidate. Totally agree. Ron Paul would be a better candidate, too. DeSantis, I'm up in the air, but leaning towards DeSantis. Okay. Who else? Let's say I was 100% right about COVID. Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo. I hope you're joking, Lecture Fan. I don't think you are, though. I totally disagree. Ted Cruz is interesting. Youngkin, maybe. Yeah, I don't like Mike Pence. I don't care for Mike Pompeo. What did someone say? Lindsay says, let's say I was 100% right about COVID. Now, what does it matter? All that argued with you already moved on and won't take things back. Exactly. I couldn't end on a better statement. Lindsay, sometimes I think, Lindsay, that you're actually a very clever right-winger, right? You're always teeing it up, right? Right-wingers believe in facts, but that doesn't matter to the left wing. Right. Who cares if you were right? We've all moved on. Right. It is suspect. It really is. I do think sometimes it's too good. You set me up too well. I'm glad you're here. Really am. Yeah, right. Who cares if I was right? Right. So the next time they call for lockdowns and punishing people that don't take the medication that they want and censoring people that say things that end up being right, it'll happen again. Because who cares if you were right? Whatever, it happened. Moving on. Never works the other way, though, right? We still have a January 6th committee. No one's saying, who cares? It's over with. Isn't that interesting? Even before Trump announced he was running, for 2 years of the Biden administration, it's been Trump, 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 Trump. They didn't say, who cares? It's over. Isn't that interesting how that always works that way? Again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier in the show. They call you a crazy conspiracy theorist when you're talking when shit's going awry. You're not, that's bull. And then when you're proven right, months or years later, they're like, well, of course that happened, but it needed to. Now it's time to move on, they say. Oh, lecture fan. I would happily debate you on Mike Pence and Mike Pompeo, but I don't think you'll like how adamant I am, how terrible they are. My biggest issue is corruption. I do not want candidates that are neocons that are at the helm of defending that corruption. That's what Mike Pence and Mike Pompeo, particularly Pompeo, represent. I don't blame Pence for certifying the electors and stuff like that. That's not a big deal. But these were people that are sort of establishment type people that I think were instrumental in making sure that Trump didn't out the corruption of the corrupt FBI and other institutions that were engaged in a coup against him the whole time. And so I would loathe to support people involved in that, like John Bolton would be another. Those people that were instrumental in covering up this corruption, probably setting us in a worse place now when it comes to fighting corruption than even if Trump had not won the election. What's up, PM Your Nachos? But if you want to do a debate, I would be happy to do it. But yeah, I don't like them. Would I vote for Mike Pompeo over Joe Biden? Yeah. But I'll do everything I can to stop him from getting the nomination. Oh, Skunk's hating on Rand Paul? Bah! Yeah, like, I don't understand this criticism. Right, Rand Paul didn't win the primary. Like, it's very interesting. I love isn't it funny? Have you ever noticed this, right? You have people say this, right? Oh, man, is this the only quality candidates we can get? Really? Joe Biden? Donald Trump? Octagarians? Really? That's the best we could do? Oh, that's it. And then when you're like, well, here's a bunch of other candidates I like, but they didn't win. They're like, yeah, but they didn't win. Right. How are those two arguments, like, not tension between them? Yeah, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Oftentimes we elevate people not based on skill, like Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, right? Chuck Schumer, Katie Hobbs, John Fetterman. Are these talented people? No. You might argue in some ways. Like Pelosi and Schumer and McConnell are talented politically, but are they the best for the average person? Probably not. Nikki Haley would not be good. Rand Paul would be good. DeSantis would be good. Tulsi, I like Tulsi, but no. Tulsi's a left-winger. I think she's right about the corruption stuff. Lest we forget, Tulsi Gabbard supported the first impeachment investigation of Donald Trump. She did. It's like Justin Amash. Justin Amash is out there like, well, I'm this, middle of the road libertarian-esque fellow. Bullshit. Justin Amash supported the Trump Russia investigation. Supported it. If you were a libertarian, you would be against that abuse of power. But he wasn't. And so now he's out there like, government's too big and blah, blah, blah. Okay, when it mattered, when you had a voice, when you were in office, you didn't do shit. You supported it. So I don't want to hear it. All right, I got to go. I said I'd go 40 minutes ago. I always do this. Who we raiding? Oh, for crying out loud, doing this again. Why does it keep signing me out at Twitch? It's frustrating. As a viewer, it's signing me out, not as a streamer. I don't know. Let's get out of here. All right, tomorrow night's show, I will be talking to Libertarian Casimir. That'll be from the 9 to 11 hour. So tune in for that. I'm not quite sure what the topics will be, but it's going to be more of an interview and not so much of a debate. I'm trying to set up guests that I kind of sort of agree with or find interesting for these interviews and try to do an interview every Thursday. That means that you won't see people on there advocating for positions that I just know I don't like. So I'm not going to bring Dylan Burns to talk about Ukraine on that show because the entire point of that show is that it's a discussion and interview. If I talk to Dylan Burns about Ukraine, it's going to be a debate because I disagree with him. I'm not saying I won't talk to him. You understand? So that's the difference between a debate and an interview. So it'll be different. We are going to raid Sparky's on. Let's raid Sparky. Would raid Lecture Fan. I know he's in here, but Lecture Fan, if you're still here, I'd love to do another show talking about what we think happened with the midterms, our predictions, things like that. I think it'd be interesting. I think that Lecture Fan is an awesome person. One of the things he was tweeting that I think is absolutely true is people don't want to look at themselves and say, what could I have done better? That's absolutely the right mindset to have. I didn't communicate with Lecture Fan before I decided that my first show talking about who's to blame for the midterms was me. And it wasn't half-assed. I went pretty hard on where I failed. I think that is important. Before you point the finger at someone else, you should say, what could I have done? How many people did I register to vote? How many doors did I knock on? How many people was I able to convince through my show? So what can I do to get better? Now, I'll still point the finger at other people and say what they did wrong. But the reason that it's important to point the finger is because you want to make sure that you're winning going forward, right? So it's not just to say, fuck you, you were wrong. It's to say, where did it go wrong? How can we get better? And that always should start with yourself. Because no matter what, do I have as much influence as, Mitch McConnell? Of course not. Or of Donald Trump? Of course not. Or Paul Ryan or Tucker Carlson or insert any prominent. Of course, not even a pittance. To even be mentioned in the sentence is sort of ludicrous. But how much control do I have over those people? Even less. But I have control over myself. So that's where I should look first. That I know that I have control over myself, or at least I think I know, unless free will is an illusion, in which case this is probably all just a simulation anyways. And so send me all your money so that I could live happy and fat and wealthy, and we could all enjoy this simulation. And you could listen to me talk about shit sandwiches again. Hurrah! All right. Thanks so much for listening. Enjoy this raid of Aircraft Sparky. He's always good. I'm sure he's on there bragging about how he beat me in that weight loss competition. That schmuck. Hope you enjoyed the show. Tune in tomorrow night at 9 p.m. We'll try to have a 2-hour interview with Casimir. To all my new viewers tonight, thank you for being here. I like doing debates and things like that. I like taking call-ins. I like talking to people that disagree with me because, one, I'm pretty good at it because I'm a good debater and I'm pretty articulate. But second, because I happen to be on the right side of most of these issues, both literally on the right and literally as incorrect. So it makes it easy to talk to people. We don't have to rely on censorship or hiding from people. If I was running for office, I'd be happy to do the debates, unlike Katie Hobbs and John Fetterman. So enjoy this raid. I will have fun. I will be safe. I got a lot of house cleaning to do tomorrow. So I can't wait to see you all tomorrow evening, 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much. As always, have a good one.
Oh, he was a military man. He was a JAG lawyer. Let's not get carried away. He was a JAG.
You got to put air quotes around that.